The punishment flame, 1. Besides the small grids, there was nothing inside the tower. The high dome gave off an invisible pressure. She raised the luminous stone and shined it around. She noticed that there were many strange pictures that were sculpted on the walls and ceilings. They couldn't understand anything. The heavy atmosphere flowed through every corner of the tower, which led people's mood to unconsciously become more serious. The faint purple flame was in the front. The cold young man's face under the fire seemed to reveal a kind of indifference and alienation that refused people's contact from thousands of miles away. He looked at the scene in the tower and mumbled. He raised the fire and slowly walked down the stairs. Huang Beiyu had also followed. There was a lot of space in the tower and the stairs were designed to be a swirl. Looking down from the armrests, there was only darkness. No matter how dazzling the light is, it wouldn't be able to illuminate it. When they thought of the possibility that the Honorable Spirit was down there resting, they forced themselves to pay attention to every single detail. The 2 9-star summoners who had the purple flaming unicorn and the Isolwan spirit bird were forced to be careful because they had no idea how strong the strength of the Honorable Spirit was. If they weren't careful enough, they would lose their lives. Shi Tian Darren. Zhang Yi suddenly stopped his footsteps. He turned around and from the faint purple flame and looked at the mysterious person under the black cloak. What happened? He suddenly stopped, so she had thought that he had found something important. In the end, after seeing how calm his expression was, she couldn't help but be disappointed. How much do you know about the Honorable Spirit? It was an indifferent tone, as though they hadn't talked to each other that often. It was like the questioning of information between 2 normal friends. Huang Beiyu didn't conceal anything either. At this point, the more information they knew, the more it will benefit them. I only know that he is a godly beast. He had learned the 7th tower's punishment flame and his strength is so powerful that it's scary. Even though we 2 super spirit beasts in together, we might not even be able to beat it. Zhang Yi slightly nodded his head. When he had heard that the Honorable Spirit had learned the punishment flame, his eyes had shined. The punishment flame is a supreme existence in the Lingyang College. It is sealed at the bottom of the 7th tower. Only those who had made severe mistakes would be brought to the 7th tower to accept the test of the punishment flame. That day, Xueche had not even received 1% of the power of the punishment flame. Otherwise, based on his cultivation, he would be bound to die. The power of the punishment flame is not something normal people could have imagined. There were some people who had rumored that the imperial capital of Nanyi country's Linghuai city is the most unbreakable city of Kardi mainland. It was not because of anything else, but because of the existence of the punishment flame. If the country had changed, as long as there isn't a change in the world, the punishment flame is the most powerful weapon. That Honorable Spirit was actually able to learn the punishment flame. What level is that godly beast? Crown Prince, how come the Honorable Spirit had become Lingyang College's guardian godly beast? This reason, probably no one knows. I only know that he had appeared in the 7th tower 12 years ago. The powerful existence led no one to deny him. Due to this, Principal Tsang he had allowed the Honorable Spirit to live in the 7th tower. Huang Beiyu slightly furrowed her eyebrows. Due to the black cloak, Zhang Yi wasn't able to see that movement. However, in her heart she began to have a slight idea. 12 years ago, Huang Beiyu had turned 12 this year as well. In her body, it had sealed Yen, this unknown powerful spirit beast. The punishment flame, too, that day when the Honorable Spirit was about to leave, he gave her a meaningful look. This whole thing, does it have some connections with her? As she thought about it, Zhang Yi, who was in the front, suddenly shouted, "Be careful." After that, a small red snake was hanging on the wall by a dagger. The bright red snake kept on wiggling around and hissing. It was strangely fierce, as though it could have attacked anyone at any moment. Sky-swallowing red snake. Zhang Yi stared at the small snake and his face had changed slightly. Huang Beiyu walked over there and saw the tiny snake which was about the size of her finger. She couldn't help but to laugh. It's just a small one and it's already sky-swallowing. This is sky-swallow red snake's baby snake. It most likely had just hatched from its egg. Each couple of 100 years, there are 2 eggs hatched. One strong, one weak. This one is most likely the weak one. Be careful, the strong one must be nearby. This sky-swallowing red snake was indeed bright red and strange. One look at it and it could be told that it has a strong poison. Some refining pharmacists might like these items. Huang Beiyu thought about it and suddenly picked up a dagger and chopped the baby snake's head off. The small sky-swallowing red snake protested for a few seconds before it had died. Don't use your hands to touch it. Zhang Yi reminded. He wasn't interested in this type of item. Only refining pharmacists would want the body of spirit beasts. What connections did Shi Tian have with refining pharmacists? What an unfathomable person. Huang Beiyu naturally wouldn't use her hands to touch this type of poisonous creatures. She let the Isolwan spirit bird freeze the body of the baby snake and she placed it inside her space ring. The time in the space ring is stopped so the ice inside wouldn't melt. Sky-swallowing red snake, what rank is that spirit beast? She didn't know that much about the world's spirit beasts levels. In the past, Huang Beiyu stayed in the prefecture so she didn't know that much about the outside world. Zhang Yi looked at her again and thought she was even stranger. A strong 9-star summoner didn't know what rank a sky-swallowing red snake was. She didn't seem to understand that much of what happened in Cardi mainland. Was she not from Cardi mainland? If it was a powerful person from another world, then it could be explained. Zhang Yi, while walking, had explained to her, sky-swallowing red snake, super rank spirit beast. However, when it is grown up, it would evolve into godly beasts. But there didn't seem to be an adult sky-swallowing red snakes nearby. Why is that? If there's a baby snake here, then the adult sky-swallowing red snake should be nearby to protect it. 2 godly beasts can't possibly be next to each other at the same time. One mountain doesn't allow 2 tigers. Zhang Yi halted before saying, plus, the egg of the sky-swallowing red snake can only be hatched after 10 years. The 2 eggs that were here were most likely brought from different places by the honorable spirit. So that's why. Huang Beiyu nodded her head. What's the matter with the honorable spirit? Why did he bring the 2 sky-swallowing red snake's eggs here? He is already a godly beast. Does he want to train another godly beast? One mountain can't have 2 tigers. The godly beasts have an overbearing world awe. The 2 people walked down the stairs, their surrounding was still dark. Looking down from the stairs, it seemed to be covered with a darkness that never melted, as though there was no end to this. Huang Beiyu had calculated in her heart that based on the distance they had traveled, they should have reached the bottom of the 7th tower and they had gone down at least half the height of the tower. But now it seemed like they couldn't touch the place where the honorable spirit was at. They couldn't feel the pressure of the godly beast at all. The punishment flame, 3, just how far was the distance to the bottom? Zhang Ye's silhouette was moving in the front. The black robe seemed to have blended in with the endless darkness. There was only a little bit of purple flame that had shined unrealistically. She thought back to what she had heard in the Prime Minister's prefecture. She remembered how Prime Minister Qi and Ongguo Gong were planning to pull him down from the throne of Crown Prince. A 16-year-old young boy in her time period should have no problems and worries at school. However, he had to face so many arguments and conflicts. Huang Beiyu softly sighed. She all of a sudden wanted to tell him how it was an accident that day when she had walked with Shui Che. But before she could have spoken, Zhang Ye's footsteps had stopped. She thought that something had happened, so she was alarmed. She raised her eyes to see that Jean-Yi had moved back a step and stared at the endless darkness. She looked in detail with the help of the purple flame to see there was a wall in front of them. There's no more road. That's impossible. This is most likely a rock door. Based on many years of experiences in stealing treasures and being a killer, Huang Beiyu was familiar with all sorts of tricks and doors. She had seen through this with one look. After she finished, she had walked up and raised her hand out from under the black cloak. She had moved her hand around the rock door and quickly she had felt a place where the wall was hollowed out. Once she placed her hand inside, she had felt a heavy chain of iron rings. She took a breath in and used her strength to tug on the iron rings. It had made a sound and the heavy rock door had slowly spun around. Zhang Yi stared at her, a little shocked. He had secretly stared at this. He knew a thing or two about tricks, but he's not as skillful as her. She had been able to spot where the trick was with one look and open it on the first try. This Shi Tian, if only she could become on their side, unfortunately. As the wall had opened, there was a flaming glow that slowly illuminated the outside from the inside and the burning waves slammed onto their face. Huang Beiyu stared at the sight. She was surprised at the flaming glow from inside. Don't sway the flame that is projected on the high wall. This is the fire sea of purgatory. She pulled up the black cloak and was able to block the heat waves by a little bit. Huang Beiyu looked towards Zhang-Yi and realized he wasn't any better off. They had felt so tormented just from standing outside the door. Then how could they endure it if they go inside? Ice! Huang Beiyu lowly ordered. No matter how scary the purgatory was, she still needed to barge inside and take a trip. If she had left right now, wouldn't that be a waste of effort? She liked challenges. The more dangerous it was, the more it made her body excited. The Aisawan spirit bird's huge body flew down and it was almost as huge as the tall rock door. The extremely cold air had come out and spread around. The hot air was slightly suppressed. Huang Beiyu jumped on the back of the Aisawan spirit bird and turned around towards Zhang-Yi and said, "Come on." Since they had cooperated with each other, there's nothing wrong with helping one another. Plus, he had helped her numerous times before. Zhang-Yi was stunned but he hadn't hesitated. He softly leaped up and the extremely cold air on the ice spirit bird had slightly stabbed his hand. Be careful. Huang Beiyu had reminded softly. Zhang-Yi nodded his head and the Aisawan spirit bird had flapped its wings and flew in the huge rock door. The boundless fire sea went as far as the eyes could see. It was all burning flame. The space within the rock door was unbelievable. The punishment flame, for the endless sea of fire, as far as the eye could see, contained fierce flame. The space in the rock door was unbelievable. Huang Beiyu thought that just with one glance, the blood in her body would circulate and pound hard. This is the punishment fire. Huang Beiyu was shocked by the scene in front of her. She thought that she had come into another world and the endless fire is the only thing that existed in this world. No. Zhang-Yi slightly shook his head. The punishment fire is deeper inside. These are just the peripheral barriers. Huang Beiyu was slightly surprised in her heart. The power of these flames was stronger than the normal ones. She had felt it and even the Aisawan spirit bird which had flown high above the sea of fire had struggled. Compared to the rolling flame, the huge Aisawan spirit bird was as small as an ant in this whole fire. Hula! A huge flame in the sea of fire swelled up, just below them. The wings of the ice spirit bird had flapped harder and flew higher to avoid the flames. However, a few sparks had splashed which left a couple black dots on the ice spirit bird's white like snow body. Ice, fly higher. The space above is very wide, but the boundless darkness is somewhat chilling. However, it is better than being burnt into a roast bird by the flame. The Aislawan spirit bird listened to the order and immediately flew higher. Zhangye's black eyes had swept around the boundless sea of fire a couple of times, and there wasn't any strong pressure within, which led people to feel a little more relieved. The flames below tumbled from time to time. But with the past experience, the Aislawan spirit bird knew how to avoid it. Huang Beiyu, don't go further. The voice of Yen in her heart suddenly rang, and the tone contained warning. What did you feel? Huang Beiyu wrinkled her eyebrows slightly, not having the intentions to quit. In her dictionary, there was no word like afraid in it. Honorable spirit is in the front, Yen mumbled. He is taking a nap right now, so he hadn't noticed you guys yet. However, the honorable spirit never liked people to disturb his nap. Otherwise, you guys won't be able to endure his anger. Nap? What does that mean? Yen humphed and replied, what it means is that he is at a stage of a breakthrough. If you guys interrupted his breakthrough, do you think he will let you guys go? He would probably go through great extents to kill the both of you guys, puny 9-star summoners. Puny 9-star summoners. Huang Beiyu frowned. 9-star summoners were considered at the top of the most powerful people. Even today, it is rarely heard of anyone stronger than 9-star summoners that had appeared. But from Yan's mouth, they had become puny 9-star summoners. This thing, does he have to be so arrogant? However, it is true that the honorable spirit's anger would be big if they had interrupted his stage of a breakthrough. If it was her and her stage of breakthrough had failed because someone had disturbed her, she would go through any extent to make them pay the price. Therefore, after she heard Yan's statement, Huang Beiyu had turned around and explained to Zhang Yi, honorable spirit might be napping from a place not far from here. If we had disturbed him, the consequences can't be imaginable. After she had told him about the dangers in front, whether he chose to go or not was his problem. She couldn't joke around with a person's life. Zhang Ye's eyebrows are wrinkled. He wanted to speak when the sea of fire below them had shaken, and right after, came a furious yell not far from here. The punishment fire, 5, the sea of fire instantly surged. The burning heat waves rushed to the sky and to the highest part of the darkness. Suddenly all the things that were hidden in the darkness were illuminated. Blue bats had hanged upside down. In the darkness, they had all closed their eyes. However, when the flames rolled up, the hot temperatures and dazzling light immediately caused them to open their eyes. Each pair of light blue eyes were sparkling and shocking. The size of each blue bat was as big as an ostrich. When their wings were opened, they were even bigger. The blue bat is rank 10 spirit beast. It loved to feed on fresh blood, and it was cruel. No matter the humans or spirit beasts that they had caught, their ending would horrifying. In the misty forest, they are a race that was considered to be wild and rampant. Because they usually appeared in groups, even if spirit beasts had a powerful attack power but weren't careful enough, they would end up in the blue bat's hands. The rank 10 spirit beast, in the eyes of Huang Beiyu and Zhang Yi, is like a child. They aren't even a bit fearful of it. However, there were numerous blue bats over here. They had all densely hanged from the top, and each pair of blue eyes had stared at them mysteriously. Those stares could make a person's scalp go numb. Huang Beiyu's heart jumped and her hair had stood up. The heat waves in the distance had rolled, and with the countless blue bats nearby, they had suddenly become in danger based on the situation. Retreat! Zhang Yi lowly exclaimed. He dared not to take more time, so he immediately summoned out his purple flaming unicorn out. Huang Beiyu nodded her head. The honorable spirit had been startled awake, and he had been disturbed during the breakthrough period. At this time, the wrath of the honorable spirit isn't to be looked down upon. They didn't know the depth of his fury, and if they had rushed to provoke him all of a sudden, it wouldn't do any help in their situation. Besides, these blue bats would cause headaches. The two people, in an instant, were on their spirit beasts and quickly flew back through the way they had come here from. However, the way back was obviously much more difficult than the way here. When they had entered, the sea of fire was peaceful and there weren't groups of blue bats either. Now that their figures had moved, the blue light in the blue bats' eyes had faintly flashed. After that was the sound of cluttered wings flying. Countless blue bats flew off from the top. They were tempted by the taste of fresh blood from the two living humans. These blue bats were energetic and hyped, chasing after them. In the fire below, there were huge waves because of the honorable spirit's anger. Jean-Yi had turned around and in his hands, the violet flashing sword had appeared. The sword had condensed and he swung it backward. A purple fire had immediately burned off a huge group of blue bats. Huang Beiyu had called it a good one in her heart. However, almost immediately, she had lowly scolded. A group of blue bats was burnt, but then more blue bats were after them. It was a huge number. If they had chosen to fight with them, they would definitely waste too much vitality. If at this time they hadn't reached the exit and the honorable spirit had caught up, then they would really be unlucky. Don't care about them, keep moving forward. Huang Beiyu yelled loudly and urged the I-Salwan spirit bird to fly forward at the quickest speed. Jean-Yi had gotten the message and stopped battling against them. After the sword had swung back and burned a group of blue bats, he stopped looking back. Their speed, in the eyes of ordinary masters, is almost in an incredible realm, but at this juncture of life and death, it felt incredibly slow. The punishment fire. 6. All these years Huang Beiyu had been through life and death situations and experienced numerous dangers. She had already perfected the skill of keeping her expressions neutral. No matter how dangerous it was, she was able to keep her head calm. When they had come in, the rock door was almost in their gaze. In their hearts, they had felt relieved. Before they could let out a sigh, suddenly the flames in front had risen. Huang Beiyu's face had changed greatly and immediately drove the I-Salwan spirit bird in another direction. Zhang Ye's ability to adapt was also comparable. While she had moved to the left, he had moved to the right. If two people had flown in the same direction when the honorable spirit had caught up, both of them had to face the consequences. However, if they had separated, one of them will be safe. Once Huang Beiyu had realized Zhang Ye's thoughts, her heart had warmed. If it was during the times when they had fought together, with this type of comrade, she would be willing to give herself to the other side. At the moment of separation, Zhang Ye's sword had made a large purple flame which had greeted the overwhelming firewall. One red and one purple had suddenly hit together. The effect was really shocking. Both sides had held on for a while, but the purple flame couldn't hold on any longer. It was pushed out by the red flame wall. At this time, Zhang Yi had quickly flown back and the blue bats were burned by the purple flame. After this horrifying move, the red firewall slammed up, twisted and rotated, and finally turned into a huge fire dragon. It had screamed and the whole fire sea purgatory was shaken. It had appeared. Huang Beiyu had let out a cold gasp. So the body of the honorable spirit was that huge when it was up in close distance. It was terrifying. Yen had said in her heart, "Humph. What are you being stunned for?" The Crown Prince Zhang Yi had shifted the honorable spirit's attention away from you. Leave already. Leave. Huang Beiyu was stunned. She had never thought of leaving, especially leaving a person who would sacrifice for her behind. She had no idea what type of feelings Zhang Yi had done this out of. He had still thought that Shi Tian had relied on help from Anguogong Prefecture. However, at that moment, he had not even thought about it before he flew in the opposite direction as her and made a move first which grabbed the honorable spirit's attention. This great kindness, how could she run away first? Huang Beiyu, don't be dumb. You want to die? Yen strictly said. It could be heard that he's extremely mad. Humph, it's you who is scared of death. Huang Beiyu sneered. If you don't want to die, then come help. I can't come out every time. Last time when I came out, Huang Beiyu. Yen had screamed loudly, but it was too late. Huang Beiyu had driven the Isolwan spirit bird in the opposite direction, towards the honorable spirit. Yen was so angry that his chest had hurt. This girl was usually so cold and heartless, now why is she so loyal now? He's probably going to die at how angry he was. Ice shield, open. Under the cloak, the voice of the girl screamed firmly, and it seemed clear and moving in the roar of the burning blazing flame and the anger of the honorable spirit. Zhang Ye's eyebrows were slightly scrunched. When he saw that she had made her way back, his feelings were complicated. She could have run on her own. She was on Ongwa Gong's side. Wouldn't she wish that he would have died soon? Why did she come back? Seeing her thin but firm figure that stood on the back of the Isolwan spirit bird, the moment of the mood was anxious but mixed with joy. Fighting side by side, comrades who rely on each other, never leave each other. The punishment fire, 7, with her voice, a sturdy ice wall had formed around the flames in an indestructible and powerful posture. The continuous 12 ice shield had blocked the fire and the honorable spirit aside. Go! Huang Beiyu had shouted at Zhang Yi. She then turned around and flew back. Now that the rock door was blocked by the honorable spirit, trying to get out from there was nearly impossible. They had to find another way out. The 12 ice shields could hold the honorable spirit back for a while and it gave them some time to escape. The Isolwan spirit bird and the purple flaming unicorn rushed left and right in the tumultuous sea of fire as the blue bats rushed over in groups, attacking them fiercely. Looking for death. Huang Beiyu clenched her teeth. She had held both hands together quickly and numerous ice arrows burst out of her hands, flying in all directions. The ice-cold arrow only stabbed the blue bat accurately and unmistakably. The extremely cold air of the ice spirit bird is extraordinary. How was the rank 10 blue bats able to take this? They had all died in one move. The powerful feeling of murderous aura surrounded the strange black cloak. It was chilling, cold-blooded, and deterrent. So that the blue bats in the distance were deterred. They were hesitant and dared not come forward to face this person under the black cloak. In the moment of hesitance, Huang Beiyu and Zhang Yi had left behind a long distance from them. In the boundless sea of fire, the Isolwan spirit bird and the purple flaming unicorn were like 2 meteor showers. Pang, 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 a dozen or so sounds of the rupture of the ice shield. It made the heart of people become like ice. A roar of roaring anger in the sea of fire, it had made the fierce blue bats retreat. In the super powerful pressure, the weaker beasts didn't dare to be around. Those who didn't have a strong strength were shocked by the ferocious roar and couldn't even fly. They had fallen directly into the sea of fire and burned to ashes. The huge body of the honorable spirit had appeared from the ice shield and its huge eyes burned with flaming anger. These 2 humans had completely infuriated him. The huge body turned out from the sea of fire and the dark scales had shined strangely in the sea of fire. His eyes stared firmly at the figure that had fled forward. It roared and as though a dragon had just come out of the sea of fire, it had quickly caught up. There was no end that could be seen from this boundless sea of fire. The more someone ran inside, the more space they had noticed there was. In the end, there was no place where the eyes could see. The hot temperature led Huang Beiyu, who was on the Isolwan spirit bird's back, to feel unbearable. Her forehead had dripped down beads of sweat. It could be imagined that the situation for Zhang Yi was worse than her by many times. The sound of the rupture of the ice shield behind him was like the footsteps of the god of death. It was a little bit strange. Huang Beiyu had never thought that the honorable spirit was so powerful that in just a short period of time, he had broken through the 12 ice shields. Oh! Godly beasts are that strong. Feeling the pressure from the honorable spirit from the back, Huang Beiyu couldn't help but to burst out a few swear words. Huang Beiyu, to the left. In a critical moment, Yen had suddenly shouted. It was too late to judge. She was Yan's sealed vessel. So if she died, Yen would also die. Therefore, anyone could hurt her but not Yen. Crown Prince, this way. She had not even thought about it and immediately called the Crown Prince over and flew to the left. The sea of fire on the left, the flames of the waves turned higher. Several times, they were almost swept in by the waves. The punishment flame, 8. Thankfully the two spirit beasts were able to react quickly, each time they had resolved the dangerous situation. In the boundless sea of fire, there was no place that could be seen for hiding. This led Huang Beiyu to be worried. Yen, are you deceiving me? Yen deeply exclaimed, Stop. Stop. Huang Beiyu was stunned and like a breeze, she had halted the ice spirit bird to a stop. She was a little confused. What happened? Zhang Yi had looked at her in confusion as well. In this life or death situation, why did she suddenly stop? In her heart, she was worried too. She didn't know what Yen had planned. In this place where heaven and earth wasn't an option, Yen, this unknown spiritual beast, had become all of her hope. What had happened? Huang Beiyu seemed calm on the surface but anxiously asked Yen in her heart. Yen held in a breath and explained, on a count to 3, you will immediately go down the sea of fire. What? Huang Beiyu was shocked. Head down and jump into the sea of fire. Isn't that sending herself to death? However, Yen had not explained why, but instead he slowly began to count. 1. Crown Prince, later on, whatever I do, you will follow me too. Being helpless, Huang Beiyu had told Zhang Yi that. Zhang Yi believed in her strength, therefore, he had not even been suspicious of Shi Tian's escape route. After he heard what Huang Beiyu had said, he nodded his head. 2. Yen had counted really slowly, it had made Huang Beiyu wanted to rage. The honorable spirit's angry roar from behind was getting closer and closer. The powerful pressure seemed to be like a tall mountain that had covered everything. Through the impatience and anxious waiting, Yen had really slowly said, 3, rush. Huang Beiyu had not even thought about it when she drove the I Salwan spirit bird immediately down. Zhang Yi had frozen for a second. On his cold face, it was the first time it had revealed a surprised expression. This Shi Tian, what is she doing? Even though his head was filled with questions, but compared to the infuriated honorable spirit behind, jumping into the sea of fire wasn't a big deal. Therefore Zhang Yi had also driven his purple flaming unicorn down. Almost at the same time, when they had rushed down, a high flame swelled up. The burning flame revealed a black hole. Huang Beiyu's heart was filled with joy and she immediately put her 2 hands together, making a seal. A huge hail had smashed through and the flame surrounding the black hole was knocked out. The hole, which was just big enough for the Isalwan spirit bird to fly in sideways. Since the purple flaming unicorn had no wings, it was easier for it to follow in. Unlike the scorching sea of fire, as soon as they entered the cave, there were drips of water that fell down on their head. The cold water dropped on their cheeks, which were completely different from the hot heat waves outside. The surrounding was dark and nothing could be seen. If it wasn't because of the light on the Isalwan spirit bird and the purple flaming unicorn, they wouldn't be able to see the scene clearly in the hole. The place that they had flown was a relatively narrow cliff with black and smooth stone walls erected on both sides, thick with moss. The cold water oozed from the walls constantly. No matter whether they looked up or down, there was no end to be seen. The cold environment, and the sea of flames rolling outside, it is hard to imagine that the two were so close together. The punishment flame, 9. About 10 minutes later, the two sides of the cliff slowly opened and slowly, in front of their eyes was a large open black space. However, there was nothing in here except for black water below. There was no clue as to where the water had come from. The dark space wasn't as bright as the sea of fire. With the fire from the purple flaming unicorn, only the surrounding 10 meters or so could be seen clearly. Huang Beiyu listened to the sound of the gurgling water for a while before she stated, "We can leave through the water. As long as there's a direction in the water flow, there should be an exit where the water flowed out. These waters can't possibly be stagnant water." When they were at the edge of the cliff, a rock had fallen down. Huang Beiyu jumped down and stared at the black water. There was no clue as to whether or not there were fierce spirit beasts within the water. However, no matter how fierce the spirit beasts were, they wouldn't be scared. The two 9-star summoners, along with two super spiritual beasts, could be considered as a very powerful team. In the Sea of Fire, there was the honorable spirit. Therefore in this area, there shouldn't be any spirit beasts. With no spirit beasts, they felt slightly more at ease. Zhang Yi had also walked to her side and glanced at the water. He scrunched his eyebrows and exclaimed, "We have no idea how wide this area of water is or how deep. If we go under, there is no clue to when we would be outside. If this body of water was as wide and boundless like the Sea of Fire, they would probably drown in here first before they made it outside. This is nothing to be worried about. I have a solution." Huang Beiyu replied with ease. The Sea of Fire could have trapped her, but this body of water. Here was the chance to try out how powerful the WATE avoidance pearl was. She took out the water pearl from her space ring. The light purple water pearl was extremely beautiful and transparent at the edge of the water. Zhang Yi turned around and was shocked. He stated, "Water pearl. Good eyesight, Crown Prince." Huang Beiyu gave him a thumbs up and complimented him. "Looks like this water avoidance pearl is a treasure." Zhang Yi looked at her and the corner of his lip seemed cold. He said nothing, but in his heart, there was the feeling of the sun after the rain. In connection with the theft of the Ongwa Gong Fu and this water pearl, what was there not to be understood? This Shi Tian, such a person who likes to fool around. His face seemed cold as ever, as though a millennium iceberg. However, the corners of his lips were curled up into a faint smile. Huang Beiyu had never thought that the misunderstanding was cleared so quickly. She didn't even need to say a sentence and he had completely understood her. This type of feeling was really good. She felt relieved after this chain in her heart was removed. Let's follow the direction of the water flow. There should be an exit. Huang Beiyu explained calmly as though she had no idea what just happened. Zhang Ye's heart felt warm. This cold Shi Tian, she most likely knew already that he didn't trust her in his heart. However, at this time he was grateful that she didn't make him a fool out of himself or asked for an explanation. The two people had placed their spirit beasts away. Huang Beiyu tossed the water pearl into the water. In a split second, the purple light from the water pearl had shined brilliantly. Wherever the light was, the water's surface was turned over and moved to two sides. In the purple light, it formed a small waterless space. It was like a glass room where 4 or 5 people was able to walk in. Huang Beiyu raised her eyebrows slightly. It was her first time she saw such a magical treasure. The punishment flame, 10, let's go. She wanted to try what it was like to walk without carrying oxygen, instead walking on water. Therefore, she had first stepped into the water. As soon as she touched the ice-cold water, she couldn't help but gasp. It was freezing, as expected. This bone-chilling coldness was almost as bad as the extreme coldness of the ice-one spirit bird. She let out a sneeze and suddenly a small ripple in the water swelled up. Then she felt as though her ankle was bitten by something. Because the water was too arctic, that feeling she got was very weak. She felt like she was poked by a needle. However, when she tried to move, she found out there was no strength in her body. "There's a snake." Jean-Yi pulled her up. A red snake that was the size of a finger was wrapped around the foot of Huang Beiyu. Jean-Yi wanted to brush the red snake off, but the back of his hand was swept away by the tail of the snake. With a splash, the red snake had disappeared in an instant into the black water. There was no sign of the snake anywhere. "It's the other sky-swallowing red snake." There was a slight tremble in Jean-Yi's voice that people wouldn't normally pick up. He took the initiative and pulled up Huang Beiyu's ankle. Under the cloak, what became visible to his eyes were a pair of small girl's feet which wore pink embroidered shoes. He was slightly stunned, and as soon as she took off her shoes, a small venomous tooth print appeared on her snow-white-like feet. Huang Beiyu let out a cold gasp. That wound didn't hurt, but as the poison spread, it felt harder to breathe. There was no strength in her body, so she grabbed onto Jean-Yi's arm helplessly. "Quick, go outside. Go outside to find a doctor." She started to feel regret for learning about refining. Had she refined some pills that cured poison and brought it along with her, this type of accident wouldn't have happened. The poison of the sky-swallowing red snake belongs to the strongest fire attribute type of poison. There is no cure to it. Even though he had said this, Jean-Yi quickly grabbed a small bottle out of his space ring. From the bottle, he poured out a small green oily pill and delivered it to her. "Eat this first. It couldn't cure the poison, but at least it can protect her heart pulse and prevent it from damage." Huang Beiyu nodded her head. She weakly raised her hand and placed the pill into her mouth. In the next second, she frantically squealed, "What are you doing?" He grabbed her feet and lowered his head, covering the wound that was bitten by the sky-swallowing red snake with his mouth. He sucked the poisonous blood out little by little. He said nothing in this whole process. The beautiful eyebrows were scrunched together as though like a mountain filled with fogs. Huang Beiyu looked at him stunned. Half a second later, she reached out and gave his shoulder a few gentle pats. "Thank you." A mouthful of poisonous blood was spat out. Jean-Yi raised his head and wiped off the blood by the corner of his lips. He coldly explained, "Father Emperor wants to recruit you. If you died, Father Emperor will be upset." Huang Beiyu sighed. Couldn't this cold young man have said that he also wanted to recruit her? The longer they stayed here, the less safe Huang Beiyu felt. They had fled here, but the honorable spirit wouldn't have let them go. He definitely would have caught up. It's just a matter of time right now. Therefore, the sooner they left here, the better. An extra second spent here meant extra danger. After Jean-Yi had bandaged her wound, Huang Beiyu immediately announced, "Let's quickly leave here." Jean-Yi nodded his head and helped her up. When he did so, he saw her pair of snow-white-like feet. Thus, he was sure she was genuinely a young girl. The punishment flame, 11. Because of a male's self-esteem, Jean-Yi originally wanted to carry her and leave. However, once he thought about her powerful status as Shi Tian, he thought that would damage her pride. Therefore, he couldn't ask. When they walked into the aperture, the purple light slowly closed to form a barrier which blocked the water. They had walked into it as though walking on flat surface. The purple light glowed and allowed them to see a large range inside the black water. The bottom of the water broke the wall and fell to the ground. This should have been a small city which had sunk to the bottom. At the bottom of the water, this city most likely had been buried for thousands of years. Besides these buildings, there were human bones everywhere and their postures were all different. It seemed like this city had suddenly sunk to the bottom. Just like the mysterious Atlantis. This is the city of the unyielding. Zhang Yi suddenly lowly answered. Huang Beiyu asked confused, what is city of the unyielding? Zhang Yi guessed in his heart that she wasn't from Cardi mainland, that's why she had no understanding of Nanny country's history. He patiently explained to her. When Nanny country had just started, it had encountered strong ethnic groups. They defended their city and refused to give in. This city, which was surrounded for 1 year and was not captured, had disappeared without a single trace one night. The great ancestor admired the unyielding people's spirit and thus built Linhuai city on this city. So that was what happened. These things, Huang Beiyu seemed to have no idea about before. A city wouldn't miraculously have vanished. Now that she had seen the broken city at the bottom of the water, she was almost definitely certain that the reason the city had vanished in one right was due to an earthquake. That means that Linhuai city was built on top of where an earthquake most likely would occur. The sea of fire under the 7th tower was probably a huge volcano. The setting here was peculiar and the lava activity was frequent. Linhuai city had lived in peace for a long time, but what if one day the volcano erupted? Will Linhuai city become the next city of the unyielding? This city contained all of Huang Beiyu's memories. She can't watch it disappeared and not do anything. Crown Prince, Huang Beiyu wanted to say something, but the ground under her trembled. Her body was still weak due to the poison, so she almost fell due to the lack of balance. The two people were stunned for a while. After that tremble, there was no movement for a long time. Then, after a dozen seconds, the bottom of the water began to shake and the water that was shaken began to create huge waves. They hid in the water pearl and were shook back and forth. The honorable spirit had caught up. Let's leave quickly. Huang Beiyu was shocked. There was snake poison inside her body, and if she only relied on Zhang Yi, they aren't a match against the honorable spirit. Their only choice was to escape and find the exit. Escape out. She limped while Zhang Yi helped her escape. They hadn't run for a couple of steps when the ground beneath their feet had split. A huge crack had appeared and they almost fell into it. From the deep pit, red light had spread up. The freezing water slowly became warm. The magma had come out. Huang Beiyu was shocked. If the water became boiled, they would become dumplings. The punishment flame, 12, the waves kept on shaking. With the pearl, they weren't afraid of the shaking. However, the water was in chaos, which meant that the direction of the water flow couldn't be found. In Huang Beiyu's heart, she secretly was worried. Because she was poisoned, it had influenced her memory. She could only rely on parts of her memories to keep moving. The nearby water had flowed rapidly, all heading towards one place. Huang Beiyu revealed a smile, it should be nearby. She had just finished her statement when the water behind her turned into chaos. Right after that, the raging waves were picked up and a tight pressure appeared behind them. The huge black tail of the dragon had swept by, causing all the building to collapse under, and the water was swept out. The shining cold light of the scales was like sharp spikes. Anything that was touched by it was cut into pieces and shattered. You guys had startled my nap. How can I let you guys leave so easily? The honorable spirit's voice floated around the water. The tail swept around wildly in the water and the aperture formed by the water pearl was gradually weakened by the strong pressure. Obviously, under the pressure of the godly beast, the treasure couldn't withstand it anymore. The water flow was disturbed, which formed a large vortex. The huge tail swooped over and knocked against the water pearl. The purple aperture was instantly dispersed and water flowed in from all directions. Be careful, Zhang Ye's voice had just sounded out before it was drowned out by the rapid waves. Huang Beiyu made a noise before she was immediately swallowed by the current. Oh no! Face to face with the honorable spirit, and she had just got poisoned by the snake. Her strength had weakened down to 2 or 3/10 of her original strength. Was she bound to be unlucky this time? The water rushed too quickly and nothing could be seen clearly in front of the wet cloak. She had no idea where Zhang Yi was flushed to. In the water, the strength of the purple flaming unicorn and the ice swan spirit bird couldn't be displayed to the fullest. If they were summoned, they would actually hold them back instead of benefiting them. Therefore, Huang Beiyu grasped the black jade tightly and called for Yen in her heart. Yen! Don't pretend to be dead. If she wasn't poisoned and her body wasn't weakened, then she wouldn't be in such a difficult situation right now. Yen depressingly replied, What joke are you playing at? I had been sealed by the Blackwater Prison's 49 restrictions. I could only reluctantly come out and deal with characters like Sima Guiyen. I would be asking for death if I have to deal with that old monster. You! Huang Beiyu was so angry that she also spat blood out. Not good, that old monster seems to be heading towards you. Yan's voice slightly changed. Huang Beiyu was shocked. He was coming for her. While she thought about it, she rushed to take off the cloak that bothered her. She looked up and was almost scared to death. All she saw was that huge black tail that swept over and smashed everything out of his way. It headed straight towards her. She immediately took out the ice feathers from her hand and used all her remaining power to sweep it towards the huge tail. A huge ice blade headed towards Honorable Spirit's dark tail. The power of the ice blade wasn't as strong as the ice shield, but the strength was more. With her strength, a total of 24 ice blades could be formed. In the eyes of the Honorable Spirit, it was like a child's game of playing house. The human who had gotten snake poison and didn't have enough strength, what harm could she do against him? The huge tail stayed and didn't move out of the way. It directly collided with the 24 ice blades. The punishment flame, 13, suddenly the ice slags had broke into pieces everywhere. The strong force from the water shouldn't be underestimated. Those broken ice slags were counter-attacked upon. The power of it was very strong. Huang Beiyu held the ice feather and waved it in the water and promptly blocked it. However, after such a round, the body that was already poisoned became weaker and there wasn't much strength left. Waves of dizziness hit her as she attempted to open her eyes in order to see the situation clearly. It was uneasy to move around in the water. Plus there wasn't enough oxygen. Not to mention the uncomfortable feeling. Moreover, she still needed her full strength to go against the huge black dragon. The flaming red hair floated out of the cloak. It floated like the way a seaweed would in water. Zhang Yi, who was behind, saw that she didn't have enough strength, so he swam over despite it was the opposite direction of the water flow. The huge eyes of the dragon had swept over and its tail had slammed down. The waves had moved in the opposite direction and formed a vortex. Zhang Yi, who had just gotten a few steps closer, was immediately swept into the whirlpool. Then the Honorable Spirit had rolled Huang Beiyu up by its tail and suddenly turned around. He forcibly dragged her away. Zhang Yi, who was in the whirlpool, wasn't willing to let it end like this. He immediately summoned the purple flaming unicorn and ordered in his heart, "Save her." The purple flaming unicorn raised his eyes and looked at the Honorable Spirit, who moved freely in the water. That is the real godly beast. Not to mention that they were in the water, so their strength had decreased in half. Even on land and in a normal battle, they wouldn't be the match against the Honorable Spirit. Zhang Yi, the exit is nearby. If you don't leave now, you will also die. Purple Flaming Unicorn calmly stated. Zhang Yi clenched his teeth and replied, "Save her." The summoner and the spirit beast's lives are intertwined with each other. If you die, I will die too. Save her. The purple flaming unicorn didn't reply. Instead it roared and the body in the water had rapidly multiplied many times. Then it opened its mouth and brought Zhang Yi in. He followed the direction of the water flow and left. Huang Beiyu was in a daze and the snake poison had started to react in her body. Adding on to the loss of oxygen in the water, her face became green. There was no strength left, so she leaned on the honorable spirit's tail. The cold and sharp scales had cut against her arm. There was a bubble in her mouth which obviously meant that the last oxygen was pumped away from the lungs. Master! The Aisawan spirit bird hurriedly cried out. Please summon me out. I can protect you. Huang Beiyu shook her head. Thank goodness she didn't need it to open her mouth to talk. No, that old monster seemed to have decided not to kill me for now. If you come out, it will anger him. Her life was hanging on a line and her brain was in chaos after being poisoned, yet she could still be this calm, which led the Aisawan spirit bird to admire her. He didn't know that when Huang Beiyu was in the modern times, she had gone through fire and water. Not only that, she had experienced many dangerous things. All these experiences had slowly accumulated over time. The ability to remain calm in dangerous situations was also slowly practiced. Although she had no clue why the honorable spirit had spent that much effort to capture her but not kill her. However, as long as she isn't dead, Huang Beiyu always had the ability to turn the situation back around. Hey, well you are calm. Yen slowly exclaimed. You had also seen the honorable spirit's punishment flame. If he throws you into the punishment flame, even though your life is saved, but that kind of torture, Huang Beiyu also shuddered. The punishment flame. The punishment flame won't harm people's lives. The punishment flame, 14. The punishment flame wouldn't harm one's life, but that sinister flame would burn deeply, straight at the soul. There was a sort of explanation in the Lingyang College. The punishment flame was the type of flame that burned everything evil in one's soul off. Therefore it was named punishment. Punishment flame, who is scared of that? Huang Beiyu confidently humphed in her heart. The longer the time had passed, the more the poison had spread. The feeling of lack of oxygen was more obvious. Huang Beiyu slowly closed her eyes and slipped into unconsciousness. In her blurry conscious, heaven and earth had turned upside down. There was a lack of sunlight and moonlight. The stars had vanished. A bright red huge snake crawled out from the edge of heaven. It opened its huge bloody mouth and swallowed the entire sky. The sky-swallowing red snake. Huang Beiyu thought of the tiny red snake that bit her. It was only about the size of her finger, but after it had grown into an adult, it's that huge. After the sky-swallowing red snake had swallowed the sky, its huge body slowly crawled over to Huang Beiyu. Its red eyes glared at her. Huang Beiyu stood proudly. The wind had come out of nowhere and blew on the body of the black cloak she had worn. She coldly stared at the mountain-like sky-swallowing red snake. The clear and cold tone slowly spat out from her red lips. The revenge against your offsprings who had bitten me, in the future that will be returned 10 times harder. The huge eyes of the sky-swallowing red snake had turned and sneered, Girl, you are too arrogant. It is you who had hurt my offspring first. Had he not provoked me first, would I be disdained enough to even make a move? At the stairs of the 7th tower, that baby sky-swallowing red snake tried to attack her and Zhang Yi, but it was stopped by Zhang Yi. In the end, she was the one that gave the baby snake the last blow and chopped off its head. The sky-swallowing red snake jeered, Okay, then I will wait for the day you seek me for revenge. After he had finished, the bright red sky swallowing red snake had turned around and slowly left. Huang Bei stared at the red back and felt that her head was in pain. See. She suddenly opened her eyes. The searing flame was too harsh for her eyes. She had almost immediately closed her eyes. After a couple seconds, she had opened her eyes slowly again. This was a huge empty stone room. The surrounding were black stone walls. The wall was burned deep red by the flame. Under the stone wall, there was only a wide pond. However, the pond was not covered with water, instead, it was raging flame. She was now trapped on a stone slate in the middle of the fire, and the slate moved around the fire, as though the slate would have sunk into the flames at any moment. What was weird was that the slate was burned by the fire, yet the slate still felt cool. The flame outside, although it was strong, not even a little spark splashed inside. This was probably the place where the honorable spirit had lived, but where is the honorable spirit? With his huge body, where could he have hidden? While she thought about it, suddenly a red stone wall opened into two sides. A simple boat slowly rowed in. On the boat, there was a young man who wore a black robe and had a slender figure. His eyebrows were detailed like people who came out of paintings. He had the looks that the whole country would have admired, but that indifference made him less popular. The thin lips that were pursed made him seem unreasonable. The man stood on the boat and his narrow eyes took a look at Huang Bei. He seemed to be high on the top. The punishment flame, 15, Huang Bei was stunned. Where did this person pop out from? In this purgatory sea of fire, someone had survived. Could he happen to be the secluded high-ranked master who had a contract with the honorable spirit? The ability to have owned a godly beast as a summoning beast, and it's the type of godly beast like honorable spirit, it would make many envious. The stone slate wobbled around in the sea of fire. She was frightened that if she stood up, the slate wouldn't be balanced. If she fell, that would make her lose face. Therefore, she had remained seated. A pair of eyes raised up and stared at the man. "What is your name?" The man coldly spoke. That voice seemed as though it was from a cold spring that was frozen for thousands of years, icy and distinct. Huang Bei hugged her hands and sat cross-legged. After she had heard the question, she faintly raised her eyebrows and replied, "You didn't even tell me what your name is." "Why should I tell you?" Just as she had finished, she hadn't seen how he moved so quickly when her face was whipped by a thick and almost invisible black whip. The strength of the whip was strong, but it didn't break the skin completely. It had only left a thin red blood mark on her face while her whole body had flown out due to the force. The stone slate wasn't huge, so she almost fell into the sea of fire. She held on to the stone slate as though it was her last hope. She raised her head and glared at him. She clenched her teeth and sneered, "You're taking advantage of me because I was poisoned and can't fight against you, right?" She hadn't been beaten by someone for so many years. When that whip was taken out, she didn't even have the ability to counterattack. Being poisoned did cause a decrease in strength. However, she must admit that man's strength was above hers. "Even if you weren't poisoned, I could still beat you until you can't fight back." The man coldly exclaimed, and his eyes flashed over cold light. It was not compatible with the boundless sea of fire. Huang Bei's anger was immediately triggered. How could she let someone trampled over her strong sense of self-esteem? She wiped off the blood on her face and she quickly stood up on the slate. On the wobbly slate, she stood tall and proud. In her hands appeared the ice feathers. Her clear eyes revealed a murderous look. The man coldly stared at the ice feathers in her hand. His lips curled up into a slight look of mockery. Ice prison, open. In the endless sea of fire, the huge ice prison appeared from all directions and trapped the black-cloaked man along with the boat inside. Huang Beiyu faintly panted. Her forehead had appeared a thin layer of sweat. The body that was already weak, but it became weaker due to the poison. The ice feathers in her hand slowly became huger and transformed into a giant snow-white battle sword. She raised the sword with both hands and yelled, "Go die." Once the battle sword chopped down the prison, the ice prison would immediately be split into pieces. People that were trapped in there would also be broken into numerous pieces. Ice prison was a higher-level ice attribute skill. The target can immediately be frozen and cause them to lose their battle strength. Besides that, they would be trapped in the Arctic ice forever, never able to escape. Prison might leave a small chance for the living. But once it was smashed into pieces, then that person is bound to die. But, her eyebrows slightly furrowed. That person obviously wasn't that easy to be dealt with. There were only broken pieces of the boat in the split-up ice prison, but not pieces of the man. You had already used the skill, Ice Prison. However, there is no more vitality in your body. The strength of the ice prison is as weak as a child. The clear and cold voice sounded from behind. Huang Beiyu's back was slightly stiff. She slowly turned her head over. The punishment flame, 16, she could only to see his black cloak had floated over. He slowly walked over from the sea of fire. She licked her dry lips and sneered, "Once I regain my strength, it wouldn't be as easy as you say so." He walked closer and arrogantly stared at her, "Want a rematch?" "I'm not battling." It's not like she's bored and had nothing to do. She knew she couldn't fight against him, so obviously, she's not going to rematch. "Why did you tell the honorable spirit to capture me here?" His eyebrows slightly furrowed. He calmly stated, "Worship me as your master." Huang Beiyu shockingly looked at him. She was a little surprised and thought it was funny. Her expression contained deep mockery. "You are dreaming." Pa, his fingertips had moved and the black whip had thrashed over. She had suffered one time. How could Huang Beiyu suffer the second time? She flexibly dodged over. She had just let out a sigh when the second black whip had thrashed over from the opposite direction. The position was not off or anything and it landed on her face. Huang Beiyu was infuriated in an instant. "You want to hit me? Don't hit me on my face. Don't go overboard." Once she finished, another whip came. It had whipped on her face again. This was definitely the greatest shame of her life. She, Huang Beiyu, would rather have a life and death battle than continue to be shamed. "Ice!" She deeply hollered and summoned the Ice One spirit bird. The claws of the ice bird caught on her shoulders, like the huge wings on the back. In her hand, she held the snow-white battle sword. With wings on her back, she seemed like a god of death and threw herself at the man. Her actions were quick, agile, fierce, and added with wings, it was as though she had gained double the power. The battle sword quickly slashed at his body and he continuously backed up and ducked. Huang Beiyu suddenly went up and suddenly down. Suddenly in the front and suddenly in the back. The actions were so quick that it led people to be dazzled. The battle of the sword had begun. Each time it was aimed towards his weakness and the power was powerful. Her actions were swift and so was he. The two people had fought against each other for over 100 moves. Huang Beiyu was slightly at the disadvantage. Her face was whipped hard by his whip. Usually a person like her wasn't so self-centered, but in the end, she was still a girl. Plus she had a strong sense of self-esteem. The fire in her heart after being whipped so many times on her face. She was the type of person who became stronger when she encountered a powerful person. The more powerful the opponent was, the more intense her belligerent heart became. Though, it depended on what type of powerful person she had encountered. This man's rank was obviously not just higher by 1 or 2 ranks. His strength had probably reached the rank of legendary summoners. Strong, abnormal. Even though the summoned beast wasn't summoned, it had led Huang Beiyu, who had become one with her beast, suffered so much. He seemed to be tired of this entangled fighting style, so his black whip had suddenly rolled up and curled around Huang Beiyu's waist. The whip then harshly threw her on the slate. With such great strength, it could be seen that this man had no habit of showing mercy to a woman. Huang Beiyu was thrown so harshly that her 5 viscera and 6 bowels had almost spat out. The snake poison added on to the strong blow, her chest suddenly felt warm. She opened her mouth and a mouthful of black blood was spat out. The black-cloaked man's eyes were slightly squinted. His eyes landed on the pool of black blood for a second before he asked, "Want to worship me as your master?" "No." Huang Beiyu hadn't even thought about it before she immediately replied. "I am in a very bad mood. All I want to do is to defeat you. Even if I die, I won't worship you." Humph. He unhappily sneered. He softly waved his sleeves and a ball of flame rushed towards Huang Beiyu. The Punishment Flame, 17, Punishment Flame. Yen, who was in her body, had shockingly announced. Huang Beiyu was also stunned. Afterwards, the flame had rapidly burned up her body. The first to let out a blood-curdling scream was Yen. He is the evilest existence in her body, sealed in the Blackwater prison. The punishment flame burned the soul. So there was no way in which Yen, who was sealed in her body, would be able to escape. The eviler someone was, the worse the torment would be. Huang Beiyu only felt that the burning flame burned from the deepest part of her body, and then slowly, her 5 viscera and 6 bowels were immediately burned to ashes. There was something in her body that trembled. She heard the screams of her soul. In the flame, she had spat out a couple mouthful of black blood. Then her whole body had rolled back and forth on the slate. Her expression was malevolent and scary, like the last struggles before death. "Are you going to worship me as your master?" The black-cloaked man stood by her side and coldly stared at her in pain. Yet he felt nothing. He had just coldly inquired. Huang Beiyu's whole body shook. She bit her lip as blood had slowly oozed out of her eyes, mouth, nose, and ears. She widened her eyes, which was filled with blood, and glared at him. Her throat had let out a heartbreaking scream. No. She, Huang Beiyu, had only one master. That was the master who had taught and raised her from childhood. Her most respected and loved master. No one could replace him. His eyebrows had already revealed an obvious displeasure. "This fire would burn for an hour. If you change your mind, I will take it back. If not, no," came a determined voice. Even if she had to die, her decision would never be changed. Such a stubborn girl. "Then you can slowly be tormented." After he had finished, he didn't even look at her and walked out from the stone walls. He left her behind to be tortured. Once he had come out from the stone walls, the black-cloaked man had suddenly changed into a giant black dragon who traveled freely in the sea of fire. Not all the godly beasts could transform into human figures. No matter how strong the normal godly beasts were, they were stuck in the body of beasts. Only the strongest of the super-godly beasts were able to escape from the body of beasts and transformed into humans. The honorable spirit's huge body freely moved around in the sea of fire. After a couple of moments, he went inside another stone wall. The huge body moved along the uneven wall and climbed up to the highest place. This place seemed as though it was a cave. The walls weren't smoothness inside. There were only sharp rocks everywhere. The top of the cave was very high and there seemed to be a secret hidden in it. Honorable Spirit's huge eyes were focused on the dark stone stage in the front. On it, it looked as though there was a memorial tablet. He stared at it for a couple seconds before he said, "Your descendant had finally come." After he finished this statement, he was lost in his thoughts and was quiet. When the Honorable Spirit had gazed towards the memorial tablet, his eyes contained a lot of past memories. The times when they went up to heaven, down to earth and picked up the moon, would never return. Along with the burial of the man under the loess, the glorious years of splendid times were also buried. After an hour, the Honorable Spirit headed back towards the stone room. The punishment flame was extinguished and the girl on the slate had laid there with her last breath. On her pale face, it contained whip marks everywhere as well as bloody inks. The skin under the bloody stain wasn't green and purple as it was when poisoned. Instead, it had slowly returned back to the color of normal people's skin tone. He pulled up her feet and black blood had oozed out of the surrounding wounds formed by the bite of sky-swallowing red snake. The punishment flame, 18, the snow-white feet had turned into a deep red color. These were all the poisonous toxin forced out of her body. In this world, there was no cure for the poison of the sky-swallowing red snake. If it wasn't forced out, it was slowly moved from her body into the 5 viscera and 6 bowels. These internal organs would be eaten and destroyed slowly. Now that the poison was cured, then her life would not be in danger. Huang Beiyu had slipped into unconsciousness. She didn't even have a bit of awareness at all. The same goes for Yen, who had been burned by the punishment flame. He had retreated back to the deepest part of the black water prison along with his last breath. "You will eventually worship me as your master." The Honorable Spirit's clear and cold voice slowly rang. "Otherwise, you will never realize the rule of the Black Jade." Yan's ears slightly moved as though he had heard some key information. He hoped that the Honorable Spirit would have kept going on, but he said nothing else. He carried the unconscious Huang Beiyu and stepped onto the boat that slowly rowed itself over. In the fierce sea of fire, a boat as though a drop in the ocean, slowly drifted in the distance. Princess Zhang's Prefecture. Flowing Clouds Pavilion. Huang Beiyu had not returned and Dong Ling couldn't fall asleep. She had waited in her room for almost half the night. It was almost daytime, yet there was still no movement outside. The young miss couldn't possibly be in trouble. Dong Ling started to secretly worry. In the past, young miss had never returned this late. She walked back and forth in her room. She felt uneasy. Suddenly she heard a noise in the room. She hurriedly ran into the room to check it out. "Young miss, you're back." There was an extra silhouette on the bed who had quietly slept. Dong Ling let out a sigh. So she had already returned. It's probably because she was too tired, so she had slept soon. She walked over and wanted to pull the covers up for young miss. However, she had suddenly seen young miss's face. At that moment, she let out a sudden gasp. "Young miss. Young miss." Dong Ling raised one hand over and shook her. While she did so, she had lowly called her. At this time, she knew better than to scream out loud. If it let other people hear, then the situation will be even worse. She had nearly cried as Huang Beiyu had mumbled and slowly opened her eyes. Her eyebrows continuously jumped. Obviously, the pain from the punishment flame had not completely disappeared. "Young miss, what had actually happened?" Once she saw that young miss had awakened, Dong Ling sighed. Right after her sigh, she had quietly cried. Huang Beiyu was stunned and she touched her face. She reluctantly stated, "It's not a big deal. Don't cry. Help me up." Dong Ling hurriedly used both her hands and helped her up. She placed a pillow behind Huang Beiyu and let her lean on it. "Give me the mirror." Dong Ling hesitated for a moment. Huang Beiyu softly exclaimed, "It's fine. No matter how ugly it is, I can accept it." She was never the person who relied on her face to get somewhere. However, as a girl, she knew that her face was ruined. She wanted to see how her face had turned out to be. Dongling took the mirror from the makeup table and carefully passed it over to her. She softly stated, "Young miss, here." Huang Beiyu took the mirror over and glanced at it. At that moment, she bitterly smiled. That bastard, how dare he damaged her face this much? She must seek revenge. Even if her strength couldn't be compared to his right now, she didn't believe that her strength will never be as good as his. The Punishment Flame, 19. Her face was ruined, yet she wasn't too upset about it. It's just that she needed the status of Princess Beiyu in the future to do a lot of things. Thus, she needed her face to return to normal as soon as possible. "Young miss, why did it turn out to be like this? Who made you like this?" Dongling thought that was unbelievable. The young miss today have the strength of 9-star summoner. What type of person could have harmed her to this point? These are small wounds. Dongling, who had brought me back before? Dongling shook her head. "I didn't see either. I just heard noises, so I came in and looked, and young miss was already on the bed." Huang Beiyu nodded her head. Her eyes slightly squinted. Why had that man brought her back? Thinking about his motives, she had no clue as to why he had done this. Even now, she had no idea who he was. Why did he want her to worship him as master? Once she thought about these questions, it gave her a headache. Before she was burned by the punishment flame, her body was at its weakest point. She thought about that Xue Che who was burned for only a little while and still hadn't woke up yet. Her endurance for pain could be considered very strong. Huang Beiyu took out the jadeite liquid that the Crown Prince Zhang had gave to her last time. She let Dongling put it on her wounds. The effect of this ointment was very powerful. Last time Dongling's numerous bloody whip marks on her body were gone without a trace due to the ointment. While Dongling had wiped the ointment on, Huang Beiyu checked the snake poison in her body but surprisingly found out that the toxins had all vanished. Strange, wasn't the poison of sky-swallowing red snake supposed to be powerful? If it's so powerful, how did it disappear? It didn't disappear by itself. It was due to the punishment flame that the toxins were forced out of the body. Yan had woken up at some time and replied with his last breath. Huang Beiyu knew what the punishment flame was like. With a determined heart like hers, even she had thought about suicide to end this pain while she is in the punishment flame. It could be imagined that Yan wasn't any better off. Huang Beiyu thought seriously about it for a while before she answered in her heart, "So, he had actually helped me." Yan deeply said, "From what I think, he wanted to help you force the toxins out from the start." Punishment flame burned anything that wasn't clean. Even the evil in souls could be destroyed. The sky-swallowing red snake has an overbearing poison. There is no antidote in this world. However, once burned by the punishment flame, the toxins would be forced out of the body. Plus, the body that had been burned by the punishment flame would be immune to numerous poisons. Huang Beiyu's eyes became bright. This was a pretty good gain. She suddenly thought of something. She hurriedly asked, "Then all these years the poison that concubine Xue had planted on me, would all be gone?" "That's right. That's good. This was probably the best reward for barging into the 7th tower." In the past, she was confused. How should she use medicine to cure Huang Beiyu's body which was soaked in poison all year round? However, she had not really studied the secret of the refining pharmacist, so this matter was delayed. Who knew that after this accident was a blessing in disguise? "Huang Beiyu, how come you won't worship him as your master?" Yan was puzzled. The strength of the black-cloaked man was obviously above hers. Yet this girl rather died than to worship him as her master. I don't like to be threatened, Huang Bei-yu stated calmly. The personality of her had always been like this. She would rather harm herself than to let someone else benefit. The method of refining pills. 1. If he wanted to let her worship him as her master, then he needed to let her completely admire him from her heart. Otherwise, there is nothing to say. Yen was silent for a moment before he suddenly exclaimed, "But, I think that he seems to know about the secret of the black jade." Huang Bei-yu was shocked. She hurriedly asked, "How do you know?" Yen restated what he had heard in the Sea of Fire again to Huang Bei-yu. Huang Bei-yu bit her bottom lip and her face seemed to be indefinite. She had thought about it before that the honorable spirit under the Sea of Fire had some connections with Huang Bei-yu. But she had never thought that it was tied in with the beast without boundaries also. Yen lowly replied, "Do you want to consider it?" "I didn't really consider it. I only have one master. I don't want to worship anyone else. Plus I really don't like him. There was no way I would be able to convince my heart to be his disciple." After Yen had heard this, he had said nothing. He slowly returned back to the darkness to recover from his wounds. The wounds were almost all coated with ointment. These wounds were deep and the man had handled the strength cleverly. "Dongling, when the day is bright, go find out what the crown prince is doing." After the separation in the water, he most likely had escaped. However, based on his personality, after he escaped, he most likely gathered people to come to rescue her. The seventh tower was the honorable spirit's place. He would probably suffer more if he went there. Therefore, she wanted to know what he had been doing. Then, she would notify him that she had also escaped. Dongling nodded her head. She saw that the sky was almost lit, so she had let Huang Bei-yu rested. She went out and inquired about the crown prince's situation. Huang Bei-yu was actually really tired, so once her head met the pillow, she had fallen into a deep sleep. She had no idea how long she had slept, but she faintly heard the sound of someone moving around. She thought that Dongling had returned and wanted to let Dongling pour a cup of water for her. Her throat was so dry. However, due to her naturally born awareness, she had rolled her body over and sat up in an instant. She turned around and only saw a handsome and enchanting face which smiled at her. "You?" Her voice was hoarse, but it was still cold and murderous. The security of Princess Zhang's prefecture wasn't that strict and the location of Flowing Cloud's pavilion was remote. Therefore, it wasn't unusual that someone had barged in. However, they dared to barge into the place where she slept. Did they dislike their life? Feng Lianyi slightly smiled and turned around to pour a warm cup of tea. He delivered it over to her. Huang Bei-yu had taken it from him and sipped it all in one go. She was really thirsty. Even in her dream, she had thought that she was burned by the punishment flame. "You're not scared that I had poisoned you?" Huang Bei-yu coldly laughed. "You dared to." Even if it had poison, she wasn't scared anymore. After she was burned by the punishment flame, her whole body was considered to be immune to hundreds of poisons. Feng Lianyi wasn't even annoyed by her arrogant attitude and tone. In fact, he had thought that was interesting. Huang Bei-yu drank the tea and passed the teacup over to him as though passing it over to a servant. Feng Lianyi laughed and took it from her. He asked, "Do you want more?" "Drink." Feng Lianyi had poured 3 cups of tea continuously for her to drink. Only after that, she thought that her throat had felt better. She cleared her throat and inquired, "You have a problem?" "The marrow cleansing pill still needs these materials. It's a bit hard to look for." Feng Lian went straight to the point and delivered a folded piece of paper over to her. Huang Bei-yu took it and looked. She noticed that there were only 3 to 4 types of materials written on the paper. She was slightly surprised, only these 3. The materials for the marrow cleansing pill was actually really complicated. There were many different kinds of materials and each one was very precious. He had listed 3 kinds of materials for her. Does that mean he had found the rest of the materials? The method of refining pills, too. Feng Lianyi nodded his head. These couple of materials were probably only found in the floating forest. It's a little complicated. No problem, no matter how complicated it is, I will find it. Huang Beiyu placed the paper away. She continued, the money for the other materials, I will return it back to you later on. Thanks. It is one matter for her to let him refine the marrow cleansing pill. Yet she had never thought of taking advantage of him and let him pay the money for the materials. These couple of materials were precious, that she knew. He was only the prince of the enemy country. Even if he was well respected, that doesn't mean that he is one of the noble families of Nanyi country or that he has infinite money. Even though she wasn't the good person, it doesn't have a conscience. When Feng Lianyi heard that she was going to give him money, he was stunned. He immediately realized her thought that she didn't want it to take advantage of him. She also didn't want it to cause difficulties and have this be used against her. This girl is smart. He didn't reveal her thoughts and he casually asked, you want to wash your marrows? Not for me. Her body was just weak, that's it. Her talent and ability don't need a second thought. She didn't need it to wash her marrows. She wanted the marrow cleansing pill for Dongling to use. Dongling had learned martial arts when she was little. However, after all these years, it had been delayed and her strength wasn't strong. Eventually in the future, she would walk out of Nanyi country. Maybe, she would also walk out of the Cardi mainland. Before this could be achieved, she hoped that she could let Dongling be powerful as well. At least, she needed to have the ability to protect herself and to protect Princess Zhang's prefecture. Marrow cleansing pill, this type of high-grade pill, she didn't have the ability to refine this pill for some time. Therefore, she could only resort to others for help. With the marrow cleansing pill added on with her training, she believes it wasn't a difficult task to let Dongling become strong in a short amount of time. Feng Lianyi stared at her. Based on her cold tone and her attitude towards the Xiao family, he definitely doesn't believe that it was prepared for her siblings. It was hard to imagine that someone like her would consider for other people in such a detailed way. If she didn't want it to say, he won't force it out of her. What he was supposed to bring her, he did. It was time for him to leave now. He stood up and was ready to leave when Huang Beiyu suddenly exclaimed, Prince Yi, are you a refining pharmacist? Feng Lianyi thought about it and seriously replied, can't be considered as one. What do you mean by can't be considered as one? Huang Beiyu scrunched her eyebrows. Her impression of him wasn't that great. Now that she heard him speak, she thought it was pretty bad. I had just started interacting with pills. I learned a little. The ability to have the blood of refining pharmacists is already incredible. Huang Beiyu fairly stated. It's just that she had not figured out what his profession was. Was it a warrior, a summoner, or a refining pharmacist? Based on the battle experience from last time, his skills were very strong. Probably stronger than her. She had only saw his martial arts. Therefore, she automatically classified him as a warrior. But then there would no reason for him to steal the Lotus Flame Furnace. This person was unfathomable and with too many secrets. All she saw right now was only one corner of the glacier. You are jealous of refining pharmacists? Feng Lianyi laughed. He saw her expression and he suddenly had a thought. Can't really say, jealous. However, I think that becoming a refining pharmacist would benefit me a lot. Huang Beiyu honestly replied. In this era, the stronger the better. But in order to be strong, the methods of refining pills and devices/tools couldn't be left out. The methods of refining pills. 3. The refining pharmacist's refining pills and the refiner's tools were all needed for her to be strong. The lineage of refining pharmacists is more strict. Feng Lian used one hand and held on to his chin. He slowly exclaimed, however, maybe the marrow cleansing pill could help you. Huang Beiyu faintly smiled. The knowledge she knew for refining pills was a bit different compared to this era. Thus, she had failed when she tried to refine pills before. In this era, the lineage that Feng Lianyi had mentioned was too rare. She didn't need to rely on the marrow cleansing pill for that little to no chance. She has her own way. However, she hadn't told that to Feng Lianyi. It's not because she was stingy and selfish, but there was no point in mentioning something that even she wasn't sure. Oh right. To refine the marrow cleansing pill, it is necessary to acquire the snake gall of a three-eyed spirit snake. These types of snakes are rare. Even if we went inside the floating forest, we might not find it. Is there any other snake galls that could substitute for it? There aren't that many spirit snakes of the same rank. Feng Lianyi slowly thought about it. There was a faint stream of light on his handsome face. Huang Beiyu couldn't help but to secretly admire how handsome he was. How about one which is higher rank? Huang Beiyu asked casually. Feng Lianyi grinned faintly. That smile wasn't a mockery of her casual talk but instead, towards the question of higher rank snakes than the three-eyed spirit snake. Three-eyed spirit snake is a rank spirit beast. The higher the rank, the rarer it is. Probably, will this work? The space ring on her hand had shined and a small snake with a bright red body was in her hand. That snake was very tiny, about the size of a finger. It was about half a foot tall and its head was already chopped off. Even if it was dead, the bright red body still lets out a strange light. Feng Lianyi's eyes slightly squinted and he was shocked. Sky-swallowing red snake. It's just a baby snake. Huang Beiyu shook the baby snake's body. When she thought about when the snake's other companion had bit her and she almost died, she felt so annoyed. The baby snake is already precious. Feng Lianyi had a wide range of knowledge and in his heart right now, he was really surprised. How did this girl randomly took something out and took out a super spirit beast, the sky-swallowing red snake? After the sky-swallowing red snake had turned into an adult, it would evolve into a godly beast. This type of spiritual beast had not been heard of for thousands of years in Kardi mainland. Because they were too rare, many had thought that they were extinct. The baby snake in her hand looked as though it was the weaker one of the two. No wonder it had died in her hand. If she had encountered the strong one, even if it was a baby beast, it would be hard to deal with. I had heard that the sky-swallowing red beast is a super spiritual beast. Its snake gall should be a higher rank than the three-eyed spiritual snake. That is naturally true. With the implement of the snake gall from the sky-swallowing red snake into the pill, the marrow cleansing pill that is refined would most definitely be one level higher than the pill with three-eyed spiritual snake's gall. That would be great. Huang Beiyu was overjoyed. If the pill properties were higher by a level, the effect will be greater and the benefit for Dongling will be bigger. She gave the baby sky-swallowing red snake to Feng Lianyi and let him take the gall for the pill. The sky was completely lit and Princess Zhang's prefecture had become busy. It was inconvenient for him to stay, so Feng Lianyi had gotten ready to leave. Before he left, he went back and stated, "If you want to become a refining pharmacist, when the marrow cleansing pill is being refined, you can stay by the side and watch." The methods of refining pills, for Huang Beiyu was shocked. Weren't refining pharmacists supposed to be antisocial? Especially when they're refining pills, people should never startle them. I can watch. Huang Beiyu couldn't help but become suspicious. He's not joking around. If it's you, definitely yes. A young man covered in white raised his black jewels-like eyes. She slightly smiled at him, and his elegant temperament led one to believe in him. Huang Beiyu slightly curled her lips. But she still couldn't put her guard down against this mysterious person. Footsteps rang outside and Feng Lian faintly nodded his head. He had quickly left from the window. Dong Ling pushed the door open and walked in. Her face was a little gloomy as she slightly panted. Once Huang Beiyu had seen that expression, there was an uneasy feeling in her heart. The Crown Prince had gathered all the masters in the imperial capital. He claimed that there was a spiritual beast in Lingyang College that had caused harm to others. He ordered for people to go in and check. Dong Ling immediately told her what news she had found before she even had time to adjust her breathing. Right now, the outside was noisy and busy. People all claimed that the Crown Prince was under some unknown spell, thus he was about to tear faces with the Lingyang College. Lingyang College had over 1,000 years of history in Nani country, and its status is not just ordinarily high. Although the Crown Prince Zhanye had always been popular, but compared with the deep-rooted Lingyang College, there was a lot of difference. His actions, without a doubt, had led those people who wanted him to make a mistake become joyful. Huang Beiyu thought back to what she had heard in the Prime Minister's prefecture. Those who were with Prime Minister Qi right now used all kinds of means to harm the prestige the Crown Prince had built with its people. Isn't now the best chance for them? If this situation became big and Lingyang College was involved, then the group of people on Prime Minister Qi's side would have some dirt against the Crown Prince. If they altered the situation into what they believed it was, then even if the Crown Prince had 100 mouths, it can't be explained clearly. Huang Beiyu automatically sat up. She scrunched her eyebrows and communicated with the Ice-One spirit bird in her heart. Ice, can you move around? Yes, Master. The Ice-One spirit bird's voice sounded, though it was weaker than usual. The power of the punishment flame isn't that easy to endure. It's all up to you. Huang Beiyu's clear eyes shined. You don't need to do anything. Just appear in front of the Crown Prince and he'll understand. If the Ice-One spirit bird is fine, then Huang Beiyu naturally would be fine too. In this era, the deep-rooted idea was that the summoner and the spirit beast's lives were intertwined. They both live and die together. They had all thought that she and the Ice-One spirit bird had made a life contract with each other. Therefore, as long as the Ice-One spirit bird had appeared, then Zhanye's worry would be gone. Young miss, what happened? Dong Ling saw that she suddenly went silent. She had no idea what happened. Huang Beiyu finished explaining what to do to the Ice-One spirit bird, and then she raised her head and smiled. There's no problem. Dong Ling felt slightly comforted. She sat down on the bed and wiped off the sweat from her head. Then she suddenly became to lowly laughed. Young miss, when I went outside a while ago, I had heard something else that was very interesting. The methods of refining pills, 5.0. What is making you so happy? Ice-One spirit bird had left and Huang Beiyu became more at ease. She had found it surprising as to how happy Dong Ling was. Dong Ling covered her mouth and said in a small voice, when I was on my way back, I saw Pei Xiang. Concubine Qin had vented her bad temper at her. Why was Concubine Qin in a bad temper? Dong Ling smiled. It's due to Princess Hong Ling's birthday banquet from yesterday. Prime Minister Qi had gotten angry. Yesterday Xiao Yun had said those words in front of the young misses and masters, which soon spread out towards the noble ladies in the imperial capital. Everyone had said that those who are not in the same family won't go in the same door. How the mother was like, the daughter naturally will be like that too. And how the young sister was like, will the older sister be any better off? The wife of Ping Bei Ho was a famous and dignified person ever since she was a child. After she was married to Ping Bei Ho, she had taught her ways to her child. She was a model among the noble ladies. This time, because of a scandal that had happened in the past regarding her second sister, her reputation was tainted. How could she be happy? Princess Hongling was also influenced by Xiao Rou's improper behavior, which led her to be the object of private discussions among the young misses. Her development with the third prince was originally pretty good, yet after yesterday, the third prince was cold and indifferent towards her. Princess Hongling had run to the wife of Ping Bei Ho and cried. It had happened that the wife of Ping Bei Ho was also unsatisfied, so she got angry and told this problem to the wife of the Prime Minister. The wife of Ping Bei Yu was the daughter of the wife of the Prime Minister. The wife of the Prime Minister and the mother of concubine Qin had strived for favoritism over the years, which led the prefecture to be unpeaceful. Now, due to this situation, the wife of the Prime Minister now had something to use against her. That night, the wife of the Prime Minister had a pillow talk with Prime Minister Qi. After that, Prime Minister Qi was infuriated. His daughter's reputation and his favorite granddaughter's future, concubine Qi and Xiao Yu, would never catch up with these two people's status in Prime Minister Qi's heart. This morning, concubine Qin had made servants go to the Prime Minister's prefecture to send gifts. Originally it was large quantities of top-notch blood swallow that she had bought at an expensive price. She wanted to send some to her mother, and naturally, she also wanted to please the wife of Prime Minister Qi and the wife of Ping Bei Ho. So she had sent some over to them too. Who knew that the servant had just entered the door of Prime Minister's prefecture when they had met Prime Minister Qi, who had just got off the royal court. Prime Minister Qi was in a fit of anger at that moment and had seen that it was a servant sent by concubine Qin. He automatically told people to kick them out. The servant who had sent the gift wasn't smart. They had mumbled a few sentences under their breath, and it was heard by Prime Minister Qi. Under his wrath, he had let his people beat the servant half to death. Then he commanded the people that from now on, anyone that is from concubine Qin's place wouldn't be allowed in the prefecture at all. That servant was carried back to Princess Zhang's prefecture, and he reported back to concubine Qin. Concubine Qi had turned pale in that instant. She had fainted for a while, and after she had woken up, she kept crying as tears fell down her face. She had relieved her bad temper by yelling at servants. This time, it was impossible to count on Prime Minister Qi to save Xiao Zhongqi. Prime Minister Qi was someone who values his reputation. When she had made a mistake in the past, Prime Minister Qi had kicked her out the family door. After all these years, that anger had gradually diminished. Plus, now that she slowly had some status in Princess Zhang's prefecture, Prime Minister Qi had slightly accepted her and her two children. But who knew that that incident was scooped out by someone again? Xiao Rou cried and explained what had happened yesterday at Prime Minister's prefecture. Concubine Qin was so mad that her eyes had protruded out. What a good Xiao Yun! What a good concubine Shui! After Huang Beiyu had heard everything, she had held on to her stomach and laughed very hard. Concubine Shui and Xiao Yun really do have some skills. Just a couple of words and concubine Qin had lost their support from the Prime Minister's prefecture. The methods of refining pills. 5. Since concubine Qin doesn't have Prime Minister Qi's help, she could only come here and beg young Miss Ah. Dongling laughed happily. All these years, she had waited to watch as concubine Qin and Shui lose their powers. It would be best if they had received retribution. It won't work out even if they beg me. If Xiao Zhongqi didn't hand the lotus flame furnace over, would Ongwa Gong let him go? Huang Beiyu embraced the quilt and a strand of black hair fell onto it. It shined the way above average silk would have. It showed off the white and delicate skin tone on her face. After she had finished wiping the jadeite liquid on her wounds, the wounds that weren't so deep began to slowly heal. Now, there weren't any visible traces. The eldest young master is definitely going to be a scapegoat. He has no choice. Dongling was extremely joyful. Now that she saw these people had received retribution, she was happier than anyone else. This situation, no matter how hard Ongwa Gong tries to check, they won't be able to check it to their side. They would be able to play them to death without leaving any traces. The two people had sat and chatted when someone suddenly knocked on the door. At this time, who would be coming? Dongling was suspicious, but she went and opened the door. "Fourth young miss, why are you here?" "Dongling, is third sister here?" Xiao Rou's voice seemed to be anxious. It looked like what happened this morning in Prime Minister's prefecture had given her too much of a shock. She had thought that since the Prime Minister's prefecture had supported them in the past, they didn't need to be worried about anything. But now, even her grandfather didn't support them anymore. Her brother had caused trouble and her mother was so indecent. The only person she could have begged at this time was her third sister, who always had a kind heart. "We were affected by the cold last night and couldn't sleep. We had just been able to sleep right now," Dongling explained in a kind voice. Xiao Rou was immediately worried. "Then what do I do? Can I wait here until the second sister wakes up?" Dongling faintly smiled. "Fourth young miss, don't you have to go to college?" "Our young miss probably can't go today." "I don't want to go." Xiao Rou suddenly frightenedly shook her head. I'm not going to the college. What happened?" Dongling was smart. As soon as she had heard Xiao Rou's terrified tone, she knew something bad had happened. Xiao Rou snuck her nose in, the voice seemed as though she would have cried at any moment. "Now anyone in this prefecture, whoever comes out, they would die." Ongwa Gong didn't dare to go to Lingyang College to cause trouble, so he ordered people to surround our prefecture. If they saw someone that left the prefecture, they won't show any mercy. "When did this start?" Dongling let out a gasp. "When she left the prefecture, everything was fine." "How come just a while later, this had happened?" "It happened just before." That Xueche seemed to have woken up. "He had placed the blame on my brother for why he was punished by the honorable spirit. He said he will come here for revenge." Father had come back from the royal court but was stuck on the road home. He was threatened by people in Ongwa Gong's prefecture. Dongling was secretly happy. Ongwa Gong had lost the lotus flame furnace, so obviously he wouldn't have let this go. He would have used any means to get it back. She was ecstatic in her heart, but on the surface, Dongling had scrunched her eyebrows and replied, "But if this was the case, fourth young miss, there is no point in finding our young miss. Our young miss is weak and sick since childhood and she doesn't have any power. There is nothing she can do. No. Now in Princess Zhang's prefecture, they are only afraid of third sister. Xiao Rou immediately explained her plan. Ever since last time when the emperor got mad at the palace banquet, everyone knew how much the emperor values third sister. If I go out with third sister, then I'll definitely be safe. Dongling laughed coldly in her heart. Now that she knew how good young miss actually is, she would shamelessly come here and considered herself sisters with the young miss. Did she forget how she had bullied the young miss before? The methods of refining pills. 7. Fourth young miss, as long as you don't leave the prefecture, you are also safe. Dongling pretended to comfort her. Ongwa Gong only dared to cause trouble outside the prefecture. they wouldn't dare to come to the prefecture and challenge them. After all, they were still afraid of the prestige of Princess Zhang's prefecture. If this was the Shao family's old residence, Ongwa Gong's people probably would have already had barged in and beaten the people. Xiao Rou hesitated before she exclaimed with a slightly red face, But today I had made an appointment with the fifth young miss from the government minister's prefecture to go tour the lake. After she had heard this, Dong Ling really wanted to scold this fourth young miss who has no brain whatsoever. During this period of time, she actually wanted to go out and tour the lake. So actually she had come here to find young miss not because she was afraid she couldn't go to Lingyang College and attend the class, but because she wanted to tour the lake. Therefore, she wanted to take young miss out with her so that Ongwa Gong's people would be afraid to make any moves. No matter how good Dong Ling's temperament was, at this time her tone of voice had become colder. Fourth young miss, we're at a troubled time right now. It's better to not go outdoors. After the third sister wakes up, she probably might want to go out and get some fresh air. Our young miss isn't feeling well. She won't be going out today. Dong Ling explained in a calm voice. Fourth young miss, please go back. You should think about what to do with your days in the future after the eldest young master had caused that kind of trouble. Xiao Rou's face turned red. She wanted to continue speaking, but Dong Ling didn't need to pass their days looking at their faces anymore. She moved back a step and closed the door. It was the first time Xiao Rou had a door closed in her face, especially from a maid of someone she had looked down upon. At that moment, anger had risen from her heart. She wanted to yell, but then she realized that she needed to rely on Huang Beiyu in the future. So she could only hold on to the stomach of anger. Dong Ling walked inside while she had mumbled and scolded the fourth young miss. What type of things are they? They dared to use the young miss as a shield. Dream on. Huang Beiyu had clearly heard the conversation from the inside. At this moment her eyebrows were wrinkled. At this time, why does Xiao Rou still want to go outside? She wants to tour the lake with a young miss from the government minister's prefecture. The young miss was the daughter of a concubine. These young misses don't think about good things at all. Who knows what they had planned this time? Dong Ling said with disdain. Tour the lake. Huang Beiyu thought it wasn't that simple. Xiao Rou would risk her life to just tour a lake. As she thought about it, someone had knocked on the door again. Huang Beiyu had a thought in her mind and let Dong Ling open the door. It was concubine Xue and Xiao Yun who had come. After what had happened at the Prime Minister's prefecture, both mother and daughter were really happy. Third young miss, I heard that you're not feeling well again. I had brought medicine for you again. Huang Beiyu crawled out from the quilt and coughed under her hand a couple times. She stated in a hoarse voice, sorry to trouble concubine Xue. Concubine Xue had seen that she was very weak and her eyebrows furrowed. Xiao Yun's face had automatically turned bad-looking. Third young miss, your body is so weak. Are you able to go outside? Concubine Xue carefully asked. It was obviously about touring the lake. Huang Beiyu revealed a weak smile. Go outside to do what? Obviously for good things. Concubine Xue looked at Xiao Yun and hurriedly explained, this year Xiao Yaowang hosted a pill event at the Blue Lakes. It was heard that recently he had refined a spiritual pill. The noble families in the imperial capital will all go and take a look at it. So it was the pill event. In this era, because there was rarely any refining pharmacists, this led them to become one of the most popular events on Karti mainland. Every time they had refined a miracle medicine, they would invited companions to go and evaluated the product together. Those who had heard about this would all hurry to compete to see the elegant bearing of the spiritual pill. The methods of refining pills. 8. Therefore, what originally was supposed to be a private pill event, slowly turned into a grand gathering. Xiao Yaowang had been reclusive for many years and he disliked having to show his face. He had never opened any pill events when he had refined a spiritual pill. This time he had only invited a couple of his friends to take a look at the recently refined spiritual pill. Who knew how the news had passed on? Those who had heard the news all hurried to the Blue Lakes to take a look. This was Xiao Yaowang's first pill event, therefore, everyone wanted to take a look at it. It made sense why Xiao Rou didn't even want her life as long as she could go see. Huang Beiyu held a little interest over this. Besides learning the secret of the beast without boundaries, she also wanted to quickly master the methods of refining pills. So she had sat up and said, Xiao Yaowang's pill event, I also want to take a look. Concubine Xue and Xiao Yun exchanged an ecstatic look. They both thought that Huang Beiyu was a stupid person and didn't understand anything. Your body is weak, drink some medicine first. Then you can go with your second sister. Concubine Xue delivered the bowl of medicine over. Huang Beiyu shook her head and exclaimed, I just drank the medicine that Dongling had got for me. It's not good to drink some more. Just place the medicine here for now and I will drink it at night. Concubine Xue now had to rely on her so naturally, she wouldn't force her to drink it. Anyways, she drank this medicine every day so the poison in her body was already deep-rooted. It's fine if she didn't drink the medicine for a day or two. Okay, that's fine. Let Dongling dress you up warmly. We will be in the front yard waiting. The horse carriage has already been prepared. Huang Beiyu nodded her head and watched as Concubine Xue and Xiao Yun left. Then she had got off the bed and changed into casual clothes. Young miss, are you really going? You just got better. Dongling was a little worried. When young miss had got back, she was so weak and haven't rested yet. Would something happen to her if she went out? Don't worry, my body is really well. Huang Beiyu smiled. After she was burned by the punishment flame, the toxin that was compiled in her body over the years were burned off. The body that she has now is a healthy body. As long as she nurses and nourish her body for a while, there will naturally be no problems. After she saw Huang Beiyu's confident smile, Dongling was comforted. She covered her with a cloak, then they walked out the door together. In the front yard, Xiao Yun had already dressed up and waited there. There was no clue as to where Xiao Rou had gotten the news, but she had also dressed up nicely and followed them out. She was late, but no one dared to show a bit of dissatisfaction to her. Even Xiao Yun didn't dare to say anything. Third sister, let me sit with you in one horse carriage. Ah. When Xiao Rou had seen her, she immediately walked up to her. Xiao Rou was the type of person who only thought about themselves. Even the situation with Concubine Qin. Concubine Qin's reputation was ruined and Dongling had randomly said a couple statements which led her to want to separate her relationship with Concubine Qin. These type of people were the easiest to use and manipulate. Although Huang Beiyu looked down upon Xiao Rou in her heart, she still needed to use Xiao Rou's confidence. Therefore, she slightly pretended to agree. Okay, come on. Once she had said this, Xiao Yun was upset. She put up a blank face and exclaimed, Third sister, you had promised me before that you would sit in the same horse carriage as me. Anghua Gong's people were outside. With the emperor's support, despite how fearless Anghua Gong was, he didn't dare to make any move in public towards Huang Beiyu. At this point, those who were with her in the same horse carriage would be the safest. Huang Beiyu thought in her heart, when did I say that? However, she had no spare time to make a choice between Xiao Rou and Xiao Yun. She had just let Dongling help her up the horse carriage. My head is dizzy today, so I might have forgotten. Second sister and fourth sister, whoever wants to be in the same carriage as me, come up. The methods of refining pills, 9. After she had finished saying this, she let Dong Ling place the curtain down. She sat inside and waited for people outside to argue. Not much time later, Xiao Yun had opened the curtain and walked in. Outside, Xiao Rou was weeping. Huang Beiyu slightly raised her eyebrows. She admired Xiao Yun a little. In this world, the weak were praised to the strong. Those without strong strength, they were going to be stepped on forever. Crying would never fix the problem. Xiao Yun, this person, was harsh in that she had inherited concubine Shui's scorpion-like heart. As long as she wants to meet her goal, she would do anything. Xiao Rou, on the other hand, is weak-strength and selfish. Compared to Xiao Yun, she was much easier to be dealt with. The Blue Lakes was at Lin Huai City's south side. The scenery was elegant and was said to be Lin Huai City's best landscape. On the vast expanse of the lake, there are several beautiful decorated pleasure boats that seem to float around. Inside the decorated pleasure boats, zither notes transmitted outside. When looked from far away, there were a few sporadic mountain peaks in the center of the lake. The mountains were green and covered by fog. It seemed to be a scene from paradise. On the edge of the Blue Lakes, a row of willows was planted. Many pavilions were built and people walked through them as though they had walked out of a painting. The artistic conception was extraordinary. At this time, because of Xiao Yao Wang's pill event, half of the imperial capital's people had all arrived here. By the lake, there was a crowd of people who argued for renting boats. They had walked all the way from here, and other than Ongwa Gong's people who had secretly followed them from behind, they had not encountered any attacks. The good thing here is that it's the imperial capital. Princess Beiyu was in the horse carriage, and after all, Ongwa Gong's people didn't dare to make any moves towards her. She had walked down from the horse carriage. The sky had fluttered with drizzles and light rain. The willows were luxurious, and at the Blue Lakes, this scenery seemed to have come from a painting. Dong Ling hurriedly opened the paper umbrella and blocked the rain. Huang Beiyu drew the cloak closer to her. She looked back to see Xiao Yun and Xiao Rou. The two of them were gorgeously dressed and looked extraordinary. The two had brought numerous maids. Those who opened the paper umbrella opened it. Those who carried things carried it. Their manners were way bigger than the Grand Princess Beiyu. So what if their manners were bigger? There were many people by the Blue Lakes. Everyone had gone over and fought for boats. People were full on the decorated pleasure boats. The private decorated pleasure boats were mainly owned by royal and noble families. Princess Zhang's prefecture had no boats. Xiao Rou stretched her neck and looked through the crowd. She was extremely anxious. Where is Sister Wan? You guys go look. Sister Wan was Government Minister Lin's prefecture's young miss who was born from a concubine. Her name was Lin Wanjun. In Lingyang College, she and Xiao Rou were really good friends. Young miss, we can't find Lady Wan. She probably had gotten on the boat already. Her maid had looked around in a circle and still hadn't found her. She said she would wait for me. Xiao Rou lowly resented. Xiao Yun sneered. She had ordered the servants to get a boat for her no matter what they do. She then leaned against the horse carriage with the paper umbrella on. Huang Beiyu looked in the crowd and there wasn't anyone that she knew. She originally thought that when she got here, she could have rented a boat. She had never thought that there would be so many people here. Not to say to rent a boat, even walking to the bank would be difficult. There were countless decorated boats on the Blue Lakes. Those who stood on the boat and stared at the people by the bank were naturally proud. Those by the bank were obviously secretly jealous. Young miss. We rented a boat, but it's too small. It's probably not enough. After a while, Xiao Yun's people had come back and reported. The servant was badly battered. It was obvious that when they had gone to rent a boat, Enough for how many people? Xiao Yun was a little disgusted. Useless thing. The methods of refining pills. 10. The servant stated, probably, only enough for 1 to 2 people. What type of broken boat is that? Xiao Yun heard that and immediately got angry. A boat only enough for 1 to 2 people was probably the boats that fishermen went on to catch fish. The servant cried and explained, young miss, there was only these types of broken boats left. The other boats were bought away by other people. They are already on the surface of the lake. Xiao Yun clenched her teeth, just enough for 1 to 2 people, right? Then she can't bring along her maids. She turned around to look at Huang Beiyu and pretended to offer her a ride. Third sister, come on the boat with me. The small fisherman boat enough for only 1 to 2 people can't possibly catch up to those big decorated pleasure boats. Probably by the time they had reached the center of the lake, the pill event had ended. Huang Beiyu naturally wouldn't have gotten on with her. She shook her head, the boat is too small and I get dizzy on water. I am scared to get on. Dizzy on water. You're that useless. Xiao Yun was infuriated. If she doesn't have Huang Beiyu with her, then how could she become friends with Xiao Yaowang? Dongling hurriedly exclaimed, Second lady, our young Mrs. Body isn't feeling well today. She probably can't go. If you're not going then fine. Xiao Yun coldly sneered. She brought a maid along with her and got on the boat. At this time, Xiao Rou had found the government minister's prefecture's Lin Wanjun in the crowd. Although Lin Wanjun was a young miss born from a concubine, she had the talent of a summoner. Therefore, Government Minister Lin extremely valued her. The treatment of young miss born from a concubine wasn't any worse than the young miss of the first wife. Today Government Minister's prefecture had bought a couple big boats. Lin Wanjun had come to an agreement with Xiao Rou, so she had agreed for Xiao Rou to come on to the boat. But when she saw Huang Beiyu, Lin Wanjun had coldly mentioned, Sister Rou, our family's boat isn't a huge boat. It's already crowded when you come on. It can't fit anyone else. These young misses born from a concubine were usually jealous of young misses from different prefectures that were born from the first wife. Now that they had found a chance to suppress them, they showed no mercy. After Xiao Rou had a boat, she didn't depend on Huang Beiyu. She said, Third sister, the wind is huge on the Blue Lakes. Your body is weak so you shouldn't come on. Huang Beiyu looked at her coldly. She wasn't mad, but Dongling was now in a bad mood. She sneered, Fourth young miss, you should enjoy it to the full extent. Be careful, the wind is big. Once she had finished, a young boy's voice rang from behind, Princess Beiyu. After that, a young boy who wore a gorgeous ferret and a 7-colored gemstone on the belt ran over. Once he saw Huang Beiyu, his eyes had smiled. It's really you. You are also going to the Blue Lakes to see the pill event. Huang Beiyu turned her head over to look. It was the young master of the Bujier family, Luo Luo. Because her impression of Luo Luo was pretty good, she had smiled and nodded her head. Coincidentally, I am also going. I had told people to drive the boat over here. How about you come with me? I'm quite bored by myself. Luo Luo's enthusiasm was very pure. It was not because Huang Beiyu was pushed aside by others that he had invited her. Huang Beiyu couldn't help but like his personality. She had agreed without even thinking about it. I was just worried about not having a boat, thank you. Fourth lady, hope you have fun. Dongling smiled at Xiao Rou when she said this. After that, she had walked with Huang Beiyu along with Luo Luo to the bank. Xiao Rou rolled her eyes and said, Where did this smelly boy come from? Lin Wanjun was shocked from the start when she had saw Luo Luo. When he left, she got back from her trance. When she heard what Xiao Rou said, she surprisingly exclaimed, "You don't know who he is? Who is he?" Xiao Rou was baffled. The methods of refining pills. 11. He is the young master from the Bai Ji family, Luo Luo. Lin Wanjun stomped her foot when she said this. Do you know the Bai Ji family? Young Master Luo Luo had just came to the imperial capital lately. He rarely shows his face. But he will be Bai Ji family's heir in the future. Bu Ji family. You are saying that he's from the Bu Ji family. Xiao Rou was shocked that her brain had turned into chaos. Which other Bu Ji families are there? Lin Wanjun wanted to look down upon this girl without any knowledgeable. Rou how does your sister know him? How should I know? After she had figured out Luo Luo's status, Xiao Rou was even more jealous of Huang Beiyu. Why is that all the good luck is with Huang Beiyu? She was born from the first wife and personally rewarded with the title Princess Beiyu by the emperor. She had rich lands and Princess Zhang was a very prestigious woman among the people. Her indecent mother cannot be compared with Princess Zhang. When Princess Zhang was dead, she originally thought that Huang Beiyu's good luck had come to an end. It was unclear why recently, this Huang Beiyu seemed to become more and more powerful. On the other hand, because of her mother's misconduct and due to the troubles caused by her brother, she was suppressed in Linhuai City. In Xiao Rou's heart, the more she thought about it the madder she became. The Bu Ji family's huge ship came from the port. The body of the ship had absorbed water deeply which caused the surrounding small boats to flip over. The ship's body was drawn with the emblem of Bu Ji family, the Red Cross star. On top of the bow of the ship, a male eagle which was about to take flight was carved on it. It was very lifelike and the surrounding people had all sucked a breath in. The Bu Ji family awe. Even Bu Ji family had came awe. Through the voice of discussion, the suspension bridge was slowly laid down from the big ship. A gorgeously dressed teenager reached out in a gentlemanly manner, gently holding the arm of the beautiful girl next to her. He slowly took her from the suspension bridge onto the boat. Her back was fragile but noble. Petite but held an air of arrogance. Who is that girl? I had never seen her before. That is the daughter of Princess Zhang, Princess Beiyu. Ah. Those who knew had explained loudly. Princess Beiyu. It was rumored that she was a... Nonsense. A couple of days ago, Princess Beiyu had killed the rampant Xue Meng on Lingyang College's arena. Such a brave girl, how could she be a waste? That's right. Like mother like daughter. Our Princess Zhang's daughter will be like her mother too, strong and brave. Right. Right. Princess Beiyu will definitely become like Princess Zhang. Princess Beiyu is very brave. Unbelievable. Huang Beiyu's mouth slightly curled up after she had heard the praise from the bottom of the ship. It's not that she liked being praised. On the other hand, she liked how others had praised Princess Zhang. Hopefully, the reputation of the warm and generous Princess Zhang wasn't ruined by Huang Beiyu. Princess, your mother is well respected by the people. Luo Luo turned his head around and seriously stated. His clear eyes sparkled every now and then. Huang Beiyu nodded her head. Her face had revealed a soft but proud smile. Right, she is a very incredible woman. Once they ascended the ship, they had looked around. On the vast lake, numerous boats and ships had floated around. The scenery was beautiful. Luo Luo turned around to make a command. The people of Bu Ji family had immediately set sail. The methods of refining pills. 12. The ship had set sail and waves had gone up and down every now and then. The surrounding small boats had tumbled over due to the changing waves. Xiao Yao Wang's boat is over there. We can go over there and get on his boat. Then we can see the actual new spiritual pill he had just refined lately. Luo Luo pointed towards a large boat ahead. Will Xiao Yao Wang let us on his boat? Huang Beiyu had never thought that they would have been able to get on the boat. Her best plan was to stroll around nearby. Yes, Xiao Yao Wang and our family's relationship had always been good. Luo Luo explained without any schemes. He had no intentions of bragging. When with pure people, she didn't need to guess around or defend herself. This type of interaction was very simple. The ship had got to the center of the lake. Huang Beiyu's eyes had swept over and seen Xiao Yun's small boat. Xiao Yun, without a doubt, was an ice-attributed 3-star summoner. Normally, ice attributes' control on water would be very strong. She looked at Xiao Yun, who held only the ice feather. The ice feather had a fluorescent glow to it. Xiao Yun had injected the vitality into the ice feathers and she gently patted in the water. The boat quickly and smoothly traveled on the water. She did this confidently and quickly. Xiao Yun's gorgeous dress swayed on the hazy lake surface. The strands of her hairs had flown around her. The delicate look on her face was filled with proudness and confidence. She placed no one on the lake in her eyes. There were countless small boats on the lake's surface which was envious of her. Huang Beiyu leaned on the ship's side and looked far into the distance. The clear eyes had turned around and her mouth revealed a faint smile. Young Master Luo Luo, drive the ship faster. Otherwise, by the time we get there, Xiao Yao Wang's pill event would have ended. You're right, drive it quicker. Luo Luo nodded his head. He immediately went in and ordered the crew to do so. The crew had set the sails open to its full extent. Combining the wind on the lake and maneuvering of the boat, the huge body of the lake moved forward. They had originally passed many small boats and ships. Only Xiao Yun's boat was hidden in the front. Due to the sudden increase in the acceleration of the boat, huge waves suddenly appeared on the surface of the lake. The huge ship had driven over and the water had splashed on both sides. When it passed Xiao Yun, she was unlucky. A wave of water had rushed over and her small boat immediately began to wobble over. Her face had changed and she immediately made a layer of ice on the surface of the water with the ice feathers which at least had stabilized the boat. Huang Beiyu wanted to laugh loudly. What can such a thin layer of ice do? It can still turn the boat over. Of course, after the first wave had turned over, the second wave had followed up. It was bigger than the first. Added on with the splashes of the water, the layer of ice that Xiao Yun had made with a huge effort had shattered. Ah! The maid on the boat screamed and Xiao Yun had slapped her. What are you yelling for? Ah! She hadn't finished her statement when the boat had flipped over. Dong Linghu on the big ship had held in the laughter but now laughed loudly. This is how the big ships bully the small boats. Luo Luo was an innocent person but that scenery was really humorous. He couldn't help but to guffaw out loud with Dong Ling. Huang Beiyu was a bit calmer. Her lips had slightly curled up. She pulled on the emerald green cloak and sneezed. She said, "It's so cold outside." The methods of refining pills, 13, let's go in. Luo Luo hurriedly said with concern. Huang Beiyu surprisingly took a look at him. You're not going to save her. She bullies others. I don't like her so I don't care whether she dies or not. Luo Luo unruly explained. A summoner who knew how to use ice attribute would not die in the water so easily. The most that would have happened was that they would have suffered getting a little wet. The boats behind might be kind and save her. However, Xiao Yun was too arrogant before. Many people were unhappy with her. Now that she was turned over by the two waves, the people behind are more likely to take joy in her misfortune. She had not said that the person who caused her to be in the water was her sister. From so far away, plus with the drizzles on the lake, how could she have seen it clearly? Huang Beiyu took a faint look at Xiao Yun, who was struggling in the water, as walked back to the cabin to rest. It hadn't taken long before the huge ship caught up to Xiao Yaowang's ship. It was a 3-floored decorated pleasure boat, carved and embroidered. It had an imposing manner around it. Xiao Yaowang and the Bujier family really did have a close relationship. Once Xiao Yaowang had heard the servant report that Bujier's ship had come closer, he had personally brought people over and stood on the deck and waited. The two ships had slowly moved closer. After the connected wooden bridge was placed, Luo carefully pulled Huang Beiyu over. He feared that she would fall. Therefore, he had walked slowly. After they got off the wooden bridge, Xiao Yaowang was able to see Huang Beiyu clearly. He was a little surprised and said, "You had come also." Behind Xiao Yaowang stood in front of many unfamiliar high-ranking people. She saw Feng Lianyi behind him. As always, he had a smile on. The smile is gentle and elegant in the eyes of others. However, in her eyes, he is a cold and heartless person. I had met Princess Beiyu on the bank, so we had come together on the same boat. Luo smiled while he explained. He couldn't wait. "Wang Yi, where is the newly refined spiritual pill of yours?" "Let me see." "There is no spiritual pill. It's just a pill for strengthening the body." Xiao Yaowang explained faintly. He took a look at Huang Beiyu, and that gaze was meaningful. The pill for strengthening the body refined by Xiao Yaowang is naturally better than that of ordinary people. Luo's compliments were always sincere. Even Xiao Yaowang couldn't help but smile. Then, he led everyone into the cabin. A shining pill with an orange glow was placed on the table in the middle of the cabin. It was contained in a high-quality purple box. The pill glowed with brilliance, and at first glance, they all knew it was extraordinary. There was a strong scent of medicine in the cabin. Just from the smell, it made people feel refreshed. It was obvious that the pill was indeed a good thing. It was the first time that Huang Beiyu had seen such a good refined pill. She was also surprised. So she couldn't help but look at it for a couple more times. She thought about when she first refined a pill and the medicine furnace had exploded. She felt a little shocked back then. When would she be able to refine such a perfect pill? When you smelled this medicine box, how do you feel?" Xiao Yaowang walked to her side and smiled warmly when asking this. "Very comfortable. The whole body feels comfortable." Huang Beiyu replied honestly. The effect of the pill is not to be underestimated. Xiao Yaowang looked at her with a tint of tenderness in his smile. "This pill is made for you." "Me? Why would he gift her such a valuable pill?" The methods of refining pills. 14. It's merely a jade pill. As long as it can help strengthen your body, then it's good, he said in a light tone as his sincere gaze was directed straight at her. "Your health isn't good, so I always worry. I hope you'll recover as soon as possible." This was a sincere gift out of his worry for her. If she continues to refuse, it would seem like she's unreasonable. "Thank you, Wang Ye. This grace, Beiyu will remember it." "What grace? Can't you think of this as a small gift from a friend?" Xiao Yaowang smiled as he looked at her. Faint rays of light circulated around his handsome face. His manner was like jade, and his temperament was very moving. Huang Beiyu clearly and brightly smiled as she said, "Okay. I'll recognize Wang Ye as a friend then. Recognize what? Luo Luo's voice suddenly cut in. He smiled as he walked forward. He innocently blinked his pair of clear black and white eyes. Wow, no wonder you're Xiaoyao Wang. The pills you refined, with just a sniff, you can already feel its medicinal properties. Ah. You're overpraising me. Xiaoyao Wang humbly said. Luo Luo smiled as he said, this is a jade pill, right? Is this the same pill I ate before? The jade pill is very effective for people who have a weak body since they were young. It directly helps them improve their physique, toughen the tibia, the arteries, and the veins. Usually, only people who are poor in health would eat that pill. When she heard Luo Luo say that, she was somewhat puzzled. How did you eat one? When I came out from the womb, I was already sick. The doctors had said that I wouldn't be able to live past 10 years old. Later, Xiaoyao Wang refined a jade pill for me. After I ate that pill, my body got better each day. When Huang Beiyu heard Luo Luo's story, she was amazed. If Luo Luo never told her that he was sick before, she would never believe that he was a sickly person. It seems that the effects of the jade pill aren't ordinary. Pills that have good medicinal properties are also complicated to refine. Xiaoyao Wang actually refined a jade pill just for her. It can be seen that he is sincere to her. This kindness, she'll remember it in her heart. Luo Luo looked at the jade pill. As he looked at it, he said, how does it feel to be a refining pharmacist? You want to learn how to refine pills? Xiaoyao Wang gently patted his folded fan, his gaze slightly slid past Luo Luo and landed on Huang Beiyu. It's not like if I want to learn then I'll be able to learn it. Luo Luo muttered to himself. I have no talent for anything. I can only go to the Imperial College. I'm such a failure. You have many things you have to learn. You don't need to become an expert to excel. Ah. Xiaoyao Wang used his folded fan to pat Luo Luo's head. Luo Luo let out an ow sound and happily turned his head to ask Huang Beiyu, Princess Beiyu also chose medical science class. Do you also want to become a refining pharmacist? Is there anyone in the world who doesn't want to become a refining pharmacist? Huang Beiyu lightly asked. When Xiaoyao Wang heard Huang Beiyu's words, the expression on his face became thoughtful. The snow-white fan propped up his lower jaw. His skin, compared to the white jade, was even more glossy and smooth. If you want to become a refining pharmacist, then you would need a high-grade earth attribute essence cleansing pill in order to change your innate skill. When Huang Beiyu heard that he was actually seriously considering it, she quickly said, Wang Ye, you don't have to think about it. I wasn't actually serious. Right now, she doesn't need the innate skill of a refining pharmacist. Instead, she needs a process to slowly fuse everything together. It would take Xiaoyao Wang a lot of trouble and a great deal of effort to refine an essence cleansing pill for her. The pill wouldn't even be very useful to her. On the contrary, it would make him very tired. Luo Luo pouted and with a very envious tone said, Wang Ye is very good to the princess. Ah. The methods of refining pills. 15. Xiaoyao Wang lightly coughed, the expression on his handsome face suddenly become unnatural. A slightly embarrassed red color had flashed across his face. He opened his folded fan and said, They need me over there, I'm going to go over. Luo Luo and Huang Beiyu exchanged a glance. The two children were incomparably pure and slow in the matter of love. Hence, neither of them gave much thought to it. Just as Xiaoyao Wang had gone out, noises arose from the deck outside. Someone had shouted, Someone is drowning. And then there was a pu-tong sound which signaled that someone had jumped into the water. The people who were inside the ship was very curious, so they had walked onto the deck to see the situation. Huang Beiyu and Luo Luo had also followed the other people out. On the deck, the person who was drowning had already been rescued. Suddenly, a burst of crying sounded. The voice was familiar to Huang Beiyu. Dongling suddenly said, "Isn't this the voice of the second young Mrs. Maid?" Sure enough, just as Dongling had finished speaking, they heard a trembling voice say, "My name is Xiao Yun, I am the second young miss of Princess Zhang's prefecture." When Huang Beiyu heard Xiao Yun's self-introduction, she couldn't help but frown. At this time, why would she say that she's from Princess Zhang's prefecture? It's basically bringing disgrace to the prefecture. So it's the second young miss from Princess Zhang's prefecture. Quickly, someone come and help the second young miss to change her clothes. Don't let her freeze. Xiao Yaowang's elegant and refined voice sounded. Xiao Yun's voice was trembling, but it was still gentle and soft as she said, "Many thanks to Wang Ye." Huang Beiyu walked out from the crowd. She only saw that Xiao Yun was being lifted up by other people like a water ghost. The superfluous and the bulky clothes that Xiao Yun had worn before were thrown away by Xiao Yun. Otherwise, once that superfluous and bulky clothes get soaked in water, it would be heavy. The heavy robe would make her sink into the water. So presently, she only wore a thin layer of garment. Her hair was scattered and her face was purple. Luckily, there was no noble lady that liked to gossip on the boat. Or else, appearing like that in front of so many men, people would have talked about how her innocence was ruined. Most of the people on the boat are people who don't bother about trifle matters, so they naturally know to carry out their own duties. They saw that Xiao Yun was so embarrassed and that they shouldn't crowd around her to admire her. So they gradually pretended to have something else to do and began to leave. Second sister. Once the people that were about to leave heard this crisp voice, they couldn't help but to turn around and look at the scene once again. Huang Beiyu ran to Xiao Yun and pulled her hand as she anxiously asked, "Second sister, how did you become like this?" When Xiao Yun saw Huang Beiyu appear in front of her, she was shocked. She didn't expect her to be here. When she fell into the water, no one saved her. She relied on herself as a summoner with an ice attribute to get close to Xiao Yaowang's big ship to be rescued. She was secretly happy that she could slowly return the grace of saving her life to Xiao Yaowang in the future. But right now she was in a sorry state while basking in humiliation, and Huang Beiyu was dressed nicely. Huang Beiyu's bright eyes were quick-witted, her delicate chin that was surrounded by mist-covered water appeared to be more soft and touching. When compared to her, they were polar opposites. Xiao Yun was usually a proud person. She thought that when she's compared to Huang Beiyu, she's high up in the sky. She could never find something that Huang Beiyu is better at than her. However, now she's in this kind of situation, and especially in front of Xiao Yaowang like this. How could this be? Xiao Yun was really angry. Inside her heart, an envious fire burned. The fire burned to such a degree that she almost lost her mind. "Don't come here to ridicule me." Xiao Yun's tone of voice wasn't very heavy. She didn't lose all her rationality yet. She was still a little clear-headed. The methods of refining pills. 16. Don't come here to ridicule me. Xiao Yun's tone of voice wasn't very heavy. She didn't lose all her rationality yet. She was still a little clear-headed. She only wanted to push Huang Beiyu away. But she doesn't know why. When she pushed her, Huang Beiyu's weak body was pushed out. They were just standing at the side of the ship's railing. Coincidentally, Huang Beiyu was pushed off by Xiao Yun and bumped into the ship's railing. She almost flipped over and fell off the boat. A white figure flashed by. He grabbed her hand and pulled her back. "Young miss!" Dong Lin shouted as she immediately ran over. She pulled Huang Beiyu into an embrace and lifted her head to show a pair of teary eyes. She said, "Second young miss, when you hurt my young miss at home, no one dared to stop you. But now we're outside, so many pairs of eyes are watching us. Can't you let my young miss still have some face? The way she worded everything was very clever. With just a few sentences, she was able to expose all the grievance and suffering Huang Beiyu had endured while she was in Princess Zhang's prefecture. However, within her words, there were no words of criticism towards Xiao Yun. From this, it could be seen how much Huang Beiyu and the maid had been bullied by Xiao Yun. It also showed how scared of Xiao Yun they were. The people that were about to leave, once they heard these words, immediately stopped walking. They looked towards Xiao Yun's eyes and expression, which contained quite a bit of anger. Xiao Yun was at a loss for words. She never wanted to push Huang Beiyu into the water. She's not an idiot. With so many people watching, if she had done this kind of thing and the news of this spread, how could she behave herself with integrity in the future? But it was intentional. Huang Beiyu, this damned servant purposely did this. Huang Beiyu, you want to frame me? Xiao Yun pointed at her in fury. I didn't push you at all. Stop trying to pretend that I did. Second young Miss Xiao, if I had stepped in a second too late, Princess Beiyu would have really had fallen into the water. Would she pay such a big price to frame you? Feng Lianyi lifted his eyes. His eyes were usually warm and friendly. However, at this moment, his eyes were cold. Under those cold eyes, Xiao Yun's heart also became cold. Suddenly, she could no longer say anything. She can't let Huang Beiyu frame her. In a panic, Xiao Yun could only turn her head towards Xiao Yao Wang, asking for help. Wang Ye, I really didn't. Please believe me. Xiao Yao Wang is also usually a person who's as gentle as a jade. His gentleness and good manner were well known. However, his face right now was covered in frost. Second young Miss Xiao, Ben Wang's ship doesn't have woman's clothes. I'm afraid that you'll freeze, so Ben Wang had just sent someone to get you a small boat to take you home. His clear and cold voice made Xiao Yun's heart completely become cold. I had heard rumors before that you people from Princess Zhang's prefecture, due to Princess Zhang's death, had become undisciplined and out of control. You guys had bullied Princess Beiyu to the point where she doesn't even dare to leave the prefecture. Before, I didn't believe that someone would have dared to be so bold. Now that I see, those rumors were indeed true. Who gave you the nerve to be so bold and daring? Luo walked up from behind. His young, delicate, and handsome face was taunt. Although he is young, that imposing manner was very strict. Xiao Yun was angry to the point where the pit of her stomach rapidly moved up and down. Just a moment ago, everything was fine. Xiao Yao Wang had saved her. That was a golden opportunity for her to get closer to him. But that damned Huang Beiyu suddenly appeared out of nowhere and destroyed her beautiful plan. No, she can't be impulsive anymore right now. She and her mother had persistently planned this, it can't be so easily destroyed in vain. She really needs the essence cleansing pill, and she really wants to marry Xiao Yao Wang. The methods of refining pills, 17. In the end, Xiao Yun had inherited concubine Shui's way of thinking. Taking a deep breath, all the jealousy and anger were harshly suppressed down. Third sister, I was too cold before. Maybe I had accidentally pushed you. It wasn't intentional. Huang Beiyu leaned on Dongling's embrace. The corners of her mouth curved into a smile. Indeed, she is Xiao Yun. She is able to easily suppress her anger, this way it would be fun to challenge her. Dongling sniffed her nose. She raised her two tear-filled eyes to take a look at Xiao Yun. Then with panic, she lowered her head with choking sobs. She said, yes, the second young miss didn't do that intentionally. Everyone understood the grievances and fear within her voice. Huang Beiyu almost laughed out loud. Dongling is really quick-witted and crafty. Once she seized an opportunity, she'll harshly hit them. She didn't even give Xiao Yun any ability to turn the situation around. And within her voice, there was no criticism at all. Her tone showed that she was timid and wronged. The people around them were all people invited by Xiao Yao Wang. They are very able people who lived in seclusion. Dongling was able to understand the situation quickly and took advantage of the surrounding situation. She had twisted the greatest benefits for herself, smart. There is this saying that blood is thicker than water. However, to have this kind of sister, she is sure unlucky. It wasn't known who had said that, but Xiao Yao Wang's expression had turned worse. He coldly said, "Is the boat ready?" Replying to Wang Ye, "The boat is ready," a servant had said as he rushed over. Xiao Yao Wang was too lazy to even look at Xiao Yun. He waved his hand, "Send second young Miss Xiao back." "Wang Ye, I really didn't mean to do it." Xiao Yun really wanted to say more. But with the disgust and disdaining look she was getting from the numerous experts, she felt like she had become the target of criticism from others. She felt as if she just say a wrong word, she'll be killed by them and thrown into the blue lake. Xiao Yao Wang walked forward to help Huang Beiyu up. He softly asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm okay. Thank you Wang Ye for your concern," she had quietly said. Then she untied her cloak and gave it to Dongling. "Dongling, put it on my sister." "Yes." Dongling brought the cloak over. "Second young miss, the weather is really cold. Put it on." The things that Huang Beiyu give her, how could Xiao Yun accept it? But right now she can't shed her pretense. So she forced herself to laugh and said, "It's okay. Third sister isn't in good health. It's best if third sister wears it. Second sister's health is very good." Even in this state, she doesn't forget to mock Huang Beiyu's sickly body. Huang Beiyu raised her head. Her pitch-black eyes were like the morning stars that appear in the horizon. Resplendent and blurred, she looked at Xiao Yun's face. Her voice was soft but flat. "Second sister has a healthy body, so I won't worry. But second sister had fallen into the water and isn't properly dressed. It's okay here, but once you get to the coast, there will be a lot of people. People will talk about how the young missus from Princess Zhang's prefecture doesn't know any etiquette." Xiao Yun was frozen to the point where her face had become blue. Suddenly, her face became red. She had just remembered that the clothes she was wearing were what she would wear at a lady's chamber. She was only wearing an unlined single garment, and because she had fallen into the water, the garment stuck to her skin. The thin single layer of the garment was light and transparent. It stuck to her skin, outlining her fine curves. The red undergarment that she wore inside was faintly discernible. The people who were standing there were all men. She's an unmarried woman, yet she was losing face in front of numerous people without knowing it. She was careless and doesn't understand the etiquette. She was no different from a woman from the brothel. In the Ross, it was concubine Qin. But I think the author made a typo because Xiao Yun isn't really related to concubine Qin. So I changed concubine Qin to concubine Shui. The methods of refining pills. 18. Immediately, in addition to the anger in their gaze, the gaze of the surrounding people was also filled with contempt toward Xiao Yun. Xiao Yun quickly took the cloak that Dongling had brought over. She rapidly put it on herself, wrapping her entire body up. The bodyguards who had no self-restraint had already lowered their heads and started laughing. Xiao Yun only thought that today was the most humiliating day of her entire life. And she had lost her dignity in front of Xiao Yao Wang, the person she likes. She wants to find a crack in the ground and crawl inside. 2 lines of tears rolled down her cheeks. She was too embarrassed to continue to stay on the boat. She had her head down. While sobbing, she followed Xiaoyao Wang's servant onto the small boat and left. Huang Beiyu sneered coldly in her heart. Xiao Yun, you want to fight with me? You're still too tender. From today onwards, another frivolous, wanton, and ruined woman would appear in Linhuai City. However, Xiao Yun didn't have the luck that concubine Qin had that year. Concubine Qin was able to meet the lenient and generous Princess Zhang. Princess Zhang had allowed concubine Qin into the prefecture as a concubine. Xiao Yun was only an unmarried 16 years old. In this lifetime, she probably doesn't have any place in the future with the other main wives from prominent families. After the matter regarding Xiao Yun, the people that were invited here by Xiaoyao Wang were no longer in the mood for the pill event. One after another, they took their leave. Princess Beiyu. Before leaving, a thin but bright old man walked in front of Huang Beiyu. He humbly cupped one fist in the other hand and said, "The daughter that Princess Zhang had taught, you understand the etiquette very well." Princess didn't put Princess Zhang's reputation to shame. This old man is very gratified. Huang Beiyu stared at him blankly. In her memory, there were no memories of him. The old man laughed with a ha-ha. Of course Princess doesn't recognize this old man. I had met Princess Zhang before she was married. Sir, Beiyu was rude. Huang Beiyu, immediately as the identity of a junior, bowed to him. She is usually a proud person, but when it comes to her elders, especially a kind and loving elder, she is usually very respectful towards them. Furthermore, his words had praised Princess Zhang. Towards such a person, she needs to be very respectful to him. Hence, the memory of Princess Zhang won't be flawed in his heart because of her. The old man stroked the short beard on his chin and laughed, good ah. Today this old man has seen Princess Beiyu, this old man have finally resolved my desire. That year I was too busy, I wanted to give Princess Zhang a gift. But I had to deal with a lot of matters, so it kept getting delayed until she had passed away. I was still unable to send the gift. This old man had felt great regret these past years. Sir, please don't say that. My mother must have felt that it was very fortunate of her to have met you. Huang Beiyu said with a smile. The old man smiled with relief, being able to hear the princess say it like this old man is also very fortunate. Since I'm unable to give this gift to Princess Zhang, then I'll give it to you. Think of it as resolving one of this old man's wish. Saying up to this, he turned his hand over. From his high-grade purple gemmed space ring, he took out a scroll. With a smile, he gave it to Huang Beiyu. Huang Beiyu didn't dare to refuse as she quickly received it from him. Thank you, sir. When an elder gives his junior something, it wouldn't be sensible/smart to refuse. Ha ha ha, good child. I hope to see you again. The old man saw that she was well-mannered, he felt even more gratified. He nodded his head. His body floated on top of the lake. As he floated more, he slowly disappeared into the distance. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.